Welcome to another technical training down here in Atlanta, a live broadcast on GRE Training. You got myself, Greg Bruntz. I am the technical training specialist for MultiPRO and commercial VRF. Along with me, I got Daniel here. He is the Director of Technical Support.
Good morning, everybody.
I think we got a pretty good class planned out today for MultiPRO. Just to kind of give you a quick chain of events of what we got on map today for what we're going to be doing. So we'll start out on the website sharing where you find the information about MultiPRO, the quick reference guide, the system builder app, which will help you in laying out systems and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Then from there we'll move into a break. We'll take about a 10-minute break or so, and then we will be back from break and have a PowerPoint that is going to cover some of the pertinent information to installation that you need to know about installing a MultiPRO system. And then that will build into some of the service side of MultiPRO. And then from there, we will be taking another break for lunch, probably about 30 minutes. That gives us time to grab a quick something. God, I can't speak today. But it gives us a chance to grab something to eat real quick, along with you guys to stretch your legs, grab something a bite to eat or anything. And then when you come back from lunch, we'll be out in the warehouse. We've got I think it's a 28, it's either 24 or 28 MultiPRO system out there attached to 2 indoor units. I've got a camera set up out there that's going to give us a close shot on the board out there.
So we can see the buttons that we're pushing.
Yes, and so in the PowerPoint we're going to talk about one of the things I feel like haven't covered real well in previous MultiPRO trainings has been the function codes.
Yeah.
How you put it into vacuum mode, how you put it into refrigerant recovery mode. There's a bunch of different function codes. So with those function codes, out there in the training warehouse, we also have a TV screen out there that helps us follow along with you guys. So I'll take it out there. I'll have that PowerPoint up. It'll have that slide that talks about those function codes, how you get into those function codes, and we will actually follow the PowerPoint and go
do it on the machine.
Do it on the machine.
See what it looks like.
And see if we can actually get into all those function codes. Yeah. So I think that's going to be pretty neat. I think that's going to be good for you guys. We also have a couple of videos built into this whole training today. One will be in startup, where you'll hear from James McIntyre just about how you go through the startup process on a MultiPRO system after you've got it all installed and you're ready to debug the unit. Debug it, start up, it's the same thing, okay? But there is a process you have to go through to get the unit up and running.
All right.
Which is really cool. I like it because it actually self-tests the unit too. So what I tell guys to do, and I'm famous for saying this, if I got a guy on the phone and we're doing the startup and I'll go through it step by step with them, and I'm like, okay, all right, so you've hit this stage. All right, you know what time it is, right? And they're like, what?
Time.
I'm like, it's time for you to go get a donut.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything for 50 minutes to an hour. The machine's just going to run all its own. You can't adjust it. You don't want to adjust it. You just got to let it go, let it do its thing. And when you get back from having your donut break, you're either going to find that the machine just shut off and all the indoor units are off. That means everything was good. And all you got to do is take your remote control or your wired controller or whatever and go in there and turn the systems on, and you're up and running. If you come back and there's an error code, that means something's wrong. We got to figure out what is causing that error code. Some of those error codes will actually pop up during the startup of the machine, and it won't even let you get out of debug or out of startup until you've corrected those error codes. But if it's a running error code, that may not pop up until it's doing all its own system checks and everything like that. So a lot to cover today. I think it's important that we cover the installation side of it. I know some of you have probably been online with us when I've done previous MultiPRO trainings, and it's a repeat for some of you guys. But I can't stress the importance of you got to know how to install it in order to be able to even work on it. And we're still getting phone calls of things being improperly done.
Like as simple as a Y branch.
As simple as a Y branch. That literally just happened last week, where the Y branches were installed improperly. So again, I think repetition doesn't hurt. Going over this stuff.
It always helps to go over it.
Making sure you know how to do it. And I tell you guys, once you've installed one and you've installed one properly, that first one of any new equipment that you've ever put in is going to be a little more difficult than future installations. But once you have one successful mission,
first one under your belt, and you've got it.
Right, you kind of get the gist of it all. You know the protocol you got to follow, and then the next job gets easier. The next job gets easier. The next job gets easier. And I actually relate that back to when I first started into this trade. I was so nervous about how long it was taking me to take a job, and a service call taking too long, or an installation taking too long. And I actually had that discussion with my boss, and he gave me a piece of advice. Oh my God, this is 33 years ago, 34 years ago, something like that. And I believe in the advice he gave me. I thought it was great advice. He said to me, he says, Greg, I don't care how long it takes you to put in a unit. He goes, and I don't care how long it takes you to do a service call. He says, we charge, and the company I work for, we charge by a flat rate. He said, so when you give a quote on a repair, that's what they pay regardless of how long it takes you.
Yeah.
So it's not hurting the customer any. So you're right out of trade school. It's going to take you longer. And he goes, and I expect that. He says, the only thing I can tell you is stay with it, stay on top of it until you know you've completed an installation properly so that we don't have to go back.
Yeah.
He says, stay with that job until you've serviced it or fixed it properly so we don't have to go back. He said, because the bottom line is your speed will come from your knowledge of doing the calls over and over and over again. The more service calls you do, the better you're going to get at it. The quicker you're going to get at it. Same with installations. He said, because you build up this memory of, okay, I need to have these tools because I'm doing this.
Yep.
So you make sure you pack your bag and you go to do that installation. You got everything in your bag to do that particular job. You know, and the other thing that I took great pride in my years of service, when I got to the point where I was teaching other guys, one thing I can tell you guys that has been a piece of advice that I instilled on myself is I had to make sure that that van was always kept in order. So that if I'm working with another guy and I can tell him to go to the truck to get something, I could tell him exactly what shelf, left side of the van, right side of the van, where that component was, grab that particular part and bring it back to me. Because, and it's the same whether I'm going to get the part or if I'm sending somebody else to go get the part. If you're going back to your van and every single time you're having to dig through that van to find what you're eating time. You're eating a ton of time. So keeping your van organized, keeping your everything in the system that works for you. Nobody can set it up for you. You got to find out what works for you. Set your van up that way. Keep it clean. The other thing I will tell you is that I always did is on the front seat of my van, I always had a cardboard box that sat there on the seat, and it had every kind of battery that any one of my tools could use.
9 volt,
double A's, triple A's,
D,
all of that, because you just never know. And don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that I'm on the phone with, and is, oh man, my battery's dead, and all of a sudden I hear the smoke alarm beeping in the background. You know what he did, right? Okay.
And that one's probably half dead too.
And I've actually said to guys on the phone, I'm like, look, do me a favor. What? Make sure you put that battery back.
In the smoke alarm.
Because you don't want to be that guy that's watching the news that night and the house burned down. The people died because their smoke alarm didn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be my luck.
Yeah.
If I did that and I forgot to put the battery back, that would be what would happen.
That'd be awful.
It would be awful, and you'll never sleep again if you did that.
No.
So I just can't stress that enough. Make sure you guys are stocking up on batteries, and because I mean, what doesn't use batteries? Your meter uses batteries. Your scale uses batteries.
Everything.
I mean, you can go
Your
on and on and on.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of your micron gauges now are rechargeable.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Okay. So
yours is. Mine's not.
make sure you got the adapters in your van to keep things charged up.
Yeah.
Even if that means going to Walmart and buying you a $40 inverter.
Yeah. I always kept an inverter
That plugs
in my
into
van.
the cigarette lighter.
Always kept an inverter. I had my batteries set up where they're plugged up. I could take the battery off the drill when I was done, put it on the charger, and it's charging while I'm going down the road.
Yeah, well, that was before my time.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that
was after your
before
time.
your time. Yeah, that was
Before
after
my
my time. Yeah, I can't get the wording straight.
We've got a lot of new technology, Greg.
Yeah, things have gotten a lot easier. Like,
We
my
actually
God.
have Google Maps and GPS, whereas you had the map book.
I still laugh.
The street map book.
I still laugh at some of the phone calls. Like, well, my helper's going to do that. My helper's going to do that. I'm like, man, if I had a helper on
Right?
every single day, I'd still be in the field. I wouldn't have to do anything.
You got to have a good gopher.
I just make the helper do it.
Go for this, go for that.
Oh my God. Anyway, so enough of that. Let's move on into the training
Don't
for today.
forget, we really encourage everyone's involvement. We love to hear from all of you. On the right-hand side of the screen there, you've got the question button. Any questions that you got as we go along, we'll be taking some moments and going from the training, reviewing the questions and answering all that we can, and
There's only one catch to that.
what?
We reserve the right to not answer.
We do reserve the right to not answer, but we'll entertain all of the questions. And
We might repeat the question.
we might.
Doesn't mean we're going to answer it.
Just make sure it involves something to do with heat and air.
Yeah, and please keep it on topic.
Yes.
Okay.
We're talking about the MultiPRO.
We're talking about MultiPRO.
Today,
I'm not answering
not
mini split questions.
all the other,
I'm not
anything
answering
else.
flex questions.
Yeah.
I'm not answering. We're talking about MultiPRO.
And if you have random questions that pertain to the industry but don't necessarily pertain to a product, we have a monthly Talking Comfort live show that we do. Join us on there. It's kind of an open forum.
Right.
We get off the rails sometimes.
We do.
And it's a really good way to get more involved, just talking about the industry and not necessarily the products themselves. So.
Wait, really, guys, get off topic? No way.
No.
With that, let's move on. Let's jump into the website and try to get this done today. So, all right, so on the website, there was a couple key things I wanted to cover with you guys, which was the quick reference guide for MultiPRO and the system builder app. So we'll start with that. Multiple different ways you can get into it. You can go to the products page right here once you get on at greecomfort.com. And this is just automatically defaulting us to the documentation page. You don't have to, but you can go to products up here. And let's see.
Back up just a minute, Greg. I don't think we were sharing screen just yet, so.
We sharing now?
Okay, just start from the beginning
Okay.
where you got to the podium there.
All right, so once you get on our website at greecomfort.com, if you see the backslash in here, it's system documentation. That's because we're on the system documentation page where you get all of our installation manuals, service manuals, all that kind of stuff. You don't have, you can just put in greecomfort.com. It's going to bring up this page. You can go to products up here. You can go to Agree Difference. You can go to homeowners, contractors, distributors tabs, resource tabs. So we got a whole bunch of different tabs up here. So under products, you go down here to MultiPRO. You go right to MultiPRO. It tells you all about MultiPRO. It tells you all the indoor units. Document filters. All right. But I thought, wasn't there used to be a tab right here that took us to System Builder. Am I just missing it, Daniel? Well, I know it is. I just thought it was here too, but I guess not. Okay. They may have changed it. I don't get on this every day. All right. So, well, let's stay on. Hold on. Let's go back to documents. Stay on there for just a second. System documentation. You go over here to MultiPRO. It's kind of a short. And then just MultiPRO complete. So I just want to explain this web page here real quick. So you've got MultiPRO, which is basically a combination of information between Ultra Heat and standard heat pump. And then you have the controllers. This is all about your Y branches. And then, so you have your heat pump, your Ultra Heat, and then you have your ceiling cassette, your two-ways, and all of the indoor unit options. But what I wanted to show you here was if you go to MultiPRO, come down, and there's a sales brochure too, but this is what I wanted to show you was the quick reference guide. I like sharing this because it's kind of a one-stop shop. So with this, it's going to give you all of your standard units, the 2-ton, the 28, the 36, the 40, and the 60 indoor or outdoor units. And then it's also got our Ultras here, which are the newer Ultras, the GMB-Vs. And you now have a 3-ton, a 4-ton, and a 5-ton Ultra heating MultiPRO machine. Okay. Then as you go across that document, it's going to give you your min-max connections. In other words, like the 2-ton, obviously you're going to have at least one indoor unit. You can have up to 4 indoor units. And as you get into the larger sizes, like the 3-ton, you can have up to 7. The 4-ton, you can have up to 8. The 5-ton, you can have up to 10 indoor units. So there's a bunch of other information here as well. It gives you your SEER ratings, your EER R2, your HSPF2, your model number, min-max connections that I just talked about, pipe connections, max lift, max, I can't tell, minimum line length, okay, it's always 10 feet.
Hit your zoom button there, Greg, just to zoom in a little bit so it'll be a little bit easier to see. There you go.
Thank you. Let me get rid of this. All right. I think I might have made it a little too big. Then it also lists things like your maximum charge, your MCA, your MOCP, maximum overcurrent protection. Keep in mind we'll also give you a suggested or recommended breaker size. This used to be quite a bit different, but now for the most part they're pretty much recommended. I don't know how we did this. This must be a typo. We'll have to look into that because the maximum overcurrent protection is 35, and we given you a recommended breaker of 40. We can't do that.
No.
So that's got to be a typo.
Incorrect.
When it all fails, make sure you're following the data tag and that you're not putting a breaker on there bigger than what the maximum overcurrent protection says on the data sticker of the unit. That is what the inspector is going to look at. They don't care what any other documentation you show them, they're going to go by what's listed on that unit. Remember, maximum overcurrent protection is exactly that. That's the maximum. Doesn't mean you can't go lower, it just means you can't go above it. And then we also give you the HRI numbers in case you want to look up the certificate for it. And then down here, you will see all of our indoor units. You got the wall mounts, compact cassette, standard cassette, one-way cassette, two-way cassette, console, floor ceiling, slim ducted, and the air handler. And then we give you all the different applicable sizes you can order. And then on the cassettes, we also give you the grill that needs to go with that cassette. So that's why I said I like this because it kind of gives you just an overlay of all the equipment. So, and I tell guys all the time, you know, my opinion is, too many HVAC contractors rely on the distributor to make sure that they get everything correct. I will tell you all day long, if you're the one that's installing it, it's your job to make sure all the equipment you got belongs together and before you even install it. And the other kind of thing that I always talk about is when it comes to MultiPRO, and you can see it here, if that indoor unit model does not start with GMV, let's say you got an LIV, stop, because it is the wrong indoor unit. All of the GMB units or all the MultiPRO units, the outdoor unit model number and the indoor unit model number, will always start with GMV, even the air handler. Okay, and I believe over here we have the electric heat kit model numbers as well, all the way up to 20 kW. Sorry, I thought I have a little portable mouse and it ain't working, so sorry. We'll get back to what I was doing here. All right. And then control options. So I'll explain this to you. The XK46 comes with the cassettes.
You can actually point.
Not the cassettes, sorry. I'm sorry?
You can actually point on the screen because he's actually got the video of the screen itself too. No, with your finger.
Oh, okay. All right, so we got the XK46, and I said that wrong. It doesn't come with the cassettes. The cassettes come with the remote. This comes with a ducted unit, a slim duct unit. Reason for that, and you got to, if you understand things, I believe you believe things, or you remember things better, right? So on a ducted unit, the ducted unit is going to be installed outside of the living space. You're not going to have any visibility to display. Whenever the system doesn't have access to the display in the living quarters, then you can't possibly use a remote. That's why they ship a wired controller with it. So, like I said, the ducted units will come with the XK46. The cassettes will come with the remote. The XC70 is the controller that comes with the air handlers currently. The XC7C is very similar to the XK70. And that, our XC70, that is an optional controller. It's like, say you wanted to add a controller to a cassette, or you didn't want the XC70 for some reason for a ducted unit, or you did want the I'm sorry, I said that wrong again. Anyway, XK46 comes with it. You could order the XC7C and use that instead of the XK46. It is the nicer controller. It's a little more user-friendly. One of the big differences between the XK46 and the XC70 and the XC7Cs, the XK46 has no ability to display room temperature. Both of these controllers, the XC70 and the XC7Cs, both of those do have the ability to display room temperature and your set point. So it'll display room temperature until you hit the arrow. Once you hit the arrow to raise or lower the temperature, it changes the set point. Then I think it's about 5 seconds later of no touches to the controller. It'll revert back to what the actual room temperature is. Then we have the central controller. The application for central controller is really, I mean, you could use it on a like if you have a MultiPRO condenser and you have, say, 4 indoor units or 6 indoor units, that gives you the ability to have one central location to be able to control all of the indoor units. Typically, the central controller is used for when you have more than one outdoor unit. So let's say you've got 4 outdoor units. Each one of those 4 outdoor units has 4 indoor units. So now you've got 16 indoor units. that's a good application for central control. So now I got one central location that I can control all 16 indoor units from one central location within the building, okay? We have the 24-volt interface. This allows you to be able to use whatever thermostat you might want to use with a MultiPRO indoor unit. Doesn't matter whether it's an air handler, a cassette, wall mount. It'll work on any of them. Then you can use whatever thermostat you want. We have not added the new 24-volt adapter to this document yet. So basically what will end up happening is we're going to have two different offerings. We'll have this one. This one here uses a standard heat-cool thermostat. Do not use a heat pump thermostat. The way that this 24-volt adapter works is if it gets a Y call, it's going to run the heat pump in cooling mode. If it gets a W call, it's going to run the heat pump in heating mode. And that's going to be, you would need one of these per indoor unit because it's only a one-to-one setup, okay? The new 24-volt adapter is a little different. It is going to be used with with an air handler with electric heat. So I guess what I'm telling you is if you're doing any indoor unit that is not going to incorporate electric heat, this 24-volt adapter is perfect for you. And the cost keeps costs down. Because now you're buying just a standard heat-cool thermostat. You're not having to buy a heat pump thermostat. You can use whatever thermostat you want, whether you like Honeywell or Ecobee or White Rogers or whatever brand you want to use, you can use with it. But now if you're going to have an air handler with electric heat, we've just had previous trainings on the new 24-volt adapter. We don't have them landed yet for us to sell them, but coming soon. And we will have documentation on the website for that, and eventually it'll get added to this quick reference guide. And again, that new 24-volt adapter is only going to be for when you're using an air handler incorporating electric heat. All right, moving on. Other accessories. So this is just a single circuit adapter. This is for if you're using a heater kit such as like a 15K heat kit. A 15K heat kit with two circuits would be a 60 and a 30 amp circuit typically. And let's say you're changing out a system that only had one power feed to it. This is just a jumper assembly that will slide into the breakers of the heater kit and allow you to power both of the breakers on the heat kit from one power source. I mean, it's got to be the appropriate size power source. In other words, it'd be like a 90 amp breaker feeding into here an appropriate size wire to feed both the 60 and 30 amp circuits of that heat kit. This MultiPRO centralized power kit, let me explain to you what the purpose of that is. That is more for when you're doing, let's say you're taking out a multi-zone system that had individual refrigerant lines ran to each indoor unit, and you were also powering the indoor units from the outdoor unit. You could utilize that power source, this centralized power kit, so that you could power off the condenser to power those indoor units. But you will still have to run an 18-2 stranded wire for communication because MultiPRO uses the CAN bus technology, which we will talk more about once I get into the PowerPoint, the training on that. Multi-position air handler downflow kits. So if you want to take a MultiPRO air handler and make it downflow, as of right now, the way these units are built, you have to get this downflow kit to be able to reinstall that coil so it's in a downflow application. We also have for the ducted units, we have these filter kits, which is going to give you a MERV 13 filter. I think it's a great addition to any ducted unit. Just make sure you're accommodating your ductwork properly and you're going to have a proper static pressure drop across it. This here is some offerings that we have from a third-party company called Coolmaster. This here is for the MultiPRO systems. This will do up to 6 indoor units. which gives you full app controllability. You can use, so you do 6 indoor units. It'll give you, on the app, on your phone, you'll be able to control all 6 of those indoor units. If you get an error code on one of those indoor units, the app will display the error code, let the consumer know that there's a problem with the system, and so on. And it also gives you remote monitoring for a year right now, but after that year, you would have to pay for that subscription. And I'm going to be honest and frank with you, it's not cheap to keep that up. But at least for the first year, you put that on somebody's system, you can monitor that thing from any computer or tablet. So you as the contractor could actually keep tabs on their equipment and make sure the equipment's working properly for that first year. Kind of gives the homeowner a little insurance. And if they call you and say there's a problem with the unit, you can log into the system and see what's going on before you even get there. So that's pretty beneficial as well. But again, it only comes with 1 year, then you have to pay for it after that. The Cool Master and the Cool Master Pro are more for commercial applications. This one will do up to 32 indoor units, and the Cool Master Pro will do up to 255 indoor units. And this gives you complete control of the unit remotely. Also gives you full diagnostics on it remotely. Actually, the Pro gives you diagnostics. I don't think the Cool Master does. It's more just integration into BMS or BACnet. And then this one gives you all of it. The Cool Master Pro gives you full remote monitoring, access in the BACnet, and home or other types of building management systems, right? So the Cool Master, Cool Link Hub, Cool Plug, what that is used is to say you've got a system where you want to bring in MultiPRO and also bring in some mini splits into that same controller, so that you have a remote function and everything through the app to control both mini splits and MultiPRO systems. So if you have a commercial building that you're doing some mini splits, maybe you're just using a couple of mini splits for some server rooms or something, and then you got MultiPRO or even commercial VRF throughout the system, this would allow you to be able to tag that into that and integrate that into Cool Master, which also would allow you to bring it into BACnet and stuff like that. This also gives you the basic refrigerant piping layouts, Y branches, and headers. So I want you to understand, we're going to go into this a lot more in depth in the PowerPoint as far as the basic layouts and the refrigerant piping. So this is just little reminders on the quick reference guide. The Y branches, I want to take a minute on that. So if I can get Nick to kind of focus on me with the camera, because I've got a couple Y branches examples here. I want to make sure I point this out. So make sure he gets the camera on me. All right, so these Y branches. Now, and Daniel can attest to this, at once we sold the super multis.
Yeah,
the super multis also, but they used a branch box. So the way the super multis worked is you had an outdoor unit that would pipe to a branch box, and then from the branch box it would tie into mini split heads. So that particular product line used the standard mini split heads that we always had, and that's why you had to have the branch box. Because
it contained the EVs, and then everything piped into it, and then went from there to your...
Well, correct, yeah, that's right, because your EVs on typical multi-zone are located in the outdoor unit. Super multi, right? Super multi moved those to the indoor branch box.
Right.
That's where your EVs were located, and then you use standard indoor units.
Correct.
And had proper refrigerant flow and everything else. The problem with those systems is they got a lot more complex because of the branch box. With MultiPRO, we were able to get rid of those branch boxes because now your EEVs are located in the indoor unit.
Much simpler install.
Much simpler install. But the reason why I brought it up, the Super Multis, and we discontinued them, we don't sell them anymore because MultiPRO took its place. But the Super Multis and MultiPRO both used Y branches. Did they use headers at all?
No.
I didn't think so.
Just
they just
Y
used Y branches.
Because you just needed to get from the outdoor to the branch box.
Okay.
And then if you needed to add a second branch box, you did.
Okay.
But you just needed those Ys to get to the branch box.
So the thing with that is, and we ran into it quite often, where these were installed wrong. They have to be installed, if they're installed horizontally, they have to be 100% level. They cannot be like this. The problem is all your refrigerant is going to go through that lower pipe and you're going to get very poor refrigerant flow in the upper pipe. So these Y branches can be installed horizontally. They have to be within 15 degrees, and that's what the quick reference guide shows you, but preferably level, okay? And they should be strapped so that they can't come unlevel. And I took those calls myself with Super Multis where they weren't working properly, and it's because, and then when I got pictures sent in to us,
because of the Ys.
it was because the Y branches were turned like this or like this. You can't do that. They have to be perfectly level. Now, they can be installed vertically, either way. Okay? That's fine. You can do that. You just can't turn them up on end. I can't stress that enough. So, since I had examples here, I wanted to make sure you guys seen that. Now, each one of the Y branches you order, when you order it, you will get the liquid one, and you will get the suction. And if I would grab the right insulation jacket or flip it around there. And it also comes with the insulation jacket that goes around it. But each header assembly you order gives you one for liquid, one for gas. You don't have to order them separate.
You don't have to order two of the part number.
Correct.
It comes with both.
It comes with both. It comes with, each box will have one liquid, one gas. All right. But your layout and the piping and everything is only going to show the liquid. But you will get the gas. And then these headers, same thing here. These can only be installed horizontally, and it's hard for us to show it in a picture in a horizontal configuration. They have to be 100% horizontal. They cannot be installed vertically. And then down here to these basic piping rules defined and stuff. This is kind of just quick notes to everything I'm going to cover in the PowerPoint. All right, so we get out of that. And let me go up here to the Contractor tab. We're going to go to the System Builder app. So I'm going to show you guys, this is all web-based. It's pretty easy to use. And I've done all kinds of crazy ones. Most of these I'm just playing. So we'll create a new one. Maybe. Okay. We'll call this 11/14/2024. How about that for this today? Hit save. Close. All right, so now we go down here, build a new system. So when you build a new system, you can do a single zone mini split, you can do a multi-zone mini split, you can do a MultiPRO standard, you can do a MultiPRO Ultra, and you can do central air. So we'll do an Ultra, just for an example. We're going to do 3 indoor units. Remember, your outdoor to your header or to a Y branch is required 10-foot minimum, okay? That's why it automatically populated 10 feet. Now, we still got to work on some updates to the standard heat pump one. That's why I'm using the Alter. This is the most recently updated one. We're in the midst of getting the standard updated a little bit better for you guys, which will make it more user-friendly. All right. So the way the MultiPRO system builder works is this automatically defaults to using a header. If I do 2 indoor units, it's defaulting to a Y branch, okay? So if I only got 2 indoor units, it's going to default to a Y branch. If I'm doing more than 2, it's going to default to a header. If I was doing like 5 or more, it's going to default to the 8-port header. If I'm doing 4 or less, or well, 3 or 4, I should say, then it's going to default to the 4-port header. All right, moving on. So we have some drop downs that you can use here, or you can just type in whatever you want. So we'll just call this showroom 1. Unit type, let's do a air handler. And you know what? I'm going to change this. We're going to, because I like to do this. Let's call this the living room. How about that? And let's make this a 30,000 BTUs. And then from the header to the air handler, we're going to go, you either use the up and down arrow keys, or I can just type it in. So I'm going to go 55 feet. Okay. Then we're going to call this a bedroom. And we're going to go with a wall mount. And we're going to do a 9K. And we're going to put this at 49 feet. Then we're going to go to another, let's call this the game room. And it's a big game room. So we're going to go with an air handler, and we're going to make this like 24K. And we're going to add, let's make this like 30 feet. And it gives you these warnings. Max height difference between indoor and outdoor units is 49 feet. Max height difference between the outdoor unit is 131 feet. It's just kind of some warnings there. All right. So we've got the 2.5-ton air handler. Its line set size is 3/8, 5/8. The charge value per foot for the 3/8 pipe is 0.58 inches. You can actually click right here and it takes you right to the submittal for that unit. Then we have the 2-ton air handler. That's 3/8, 5/8. And the charge amount for that unit is 0.58. Then we have the 9K wall mount. And pipe sizes are 1/4, 3/8. And our multiplier for that is 0.24 for a refrigerant. Okay. Now, what I want to show you is, all right, so we can do, it's given me the ability to do the 5-ton air handler, or 5-ton condenser, but I can also do it with a 4-ton condenser because my connection capacity is still within allowable, okay? So total refrigerant charge there is 39 ounces, and this one's 39 ounces. So what I want to do, I'll show you something here. I'm trying to remember how I go back. Let's go to Give me just 1 second here. Let me choose select. There we go there. All right. I selected that. Now I can go back here and edit it. This is what I want to show you. This wall mount, I got it at 49 feet. I'm going to change this to 55 feet. Continue. Now, look what it did. Now, my line set is 3/8 half inch. It upsized the liquid line from 1/4 to 3/8, and it upsized the suction line, or the gas line, from 3/8 to half. And our multiplier for refrigerant changed to 0.58 because now we got a 3/8 pipe. The point I'm getting at, and you're going to learn as I go through the PowerPoint, the basic layout rules that we have restricts you to 49 feet or less, or even just call it 50 feet. A foot's not going to make you or break you. When you breach that 50 foot, it's going to increase the pipe size, which is not a problem. You can do that, and as long as we increase the pipe size, that's not an issue. What becomes an issue is if you do that from that header to that indoor unit, you're going to have 3/8 half inch pipe. Once you get to the indoor unit, you got to reduce back down from 3/8 to 1/4 and from half inch to 3/8 to be able to connect it to the flare on the indoor unit. This is one of those examples where I would tell you using multiple Ys or relocating the header to keep it under 49 feet on these smaller BTU units like this 9K wall mount so that you keep your line set sizes the same as the indoor unit so that you don't have to reduce back down at the indoor unit. It just adds to the ease of the installation is what I'm getting at. You can do it. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just telling you, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache if you go to multiple Ys or if you go to moving that header so that you stay under the 49 feet or under 50 feet. If you're going to use a multiple Y system, more than one Y, we do require you go to selection software for that. Selection software is going to be able to show you properly how all those Y branches work out and get all the pipe sizes correct. And it'll also calculate your charge. So with that, I think that's, Daniel, is there anything I'm missing there? It's kind of covered everything.
Well, we do have a few questions in here, Greg, if
Cool.
you want to go over those real quick.
Sounds like a plan.
Take a moment. So we've got, let's see, Arif is asking why MultiPRO is still 410A while we were moving towards 32.
Well, we are moving to 32, and
With the MultiPRO.
with MultiPRO
Yes.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
But as we said yesterday in the flex training, okay, we put in a large order of equipment that carries us through basically the spring of next year. The idea with MultiPRO is we will be filling, once we run out of MultiPRO 410A equipment, or 410A equipment, then we're going to transition into the R32. So it's going to R32 as well. We just haven't covered all that yet.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
there's
coming.
no rush.
And there is no rush.
We just needed to meet the deadline to have any 410A equipment has to land by December 31st in the United States. And then you can sell through, and then once all that's sold through, then we can switch over.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel. I mean, realistically, if you look at it in our aspect, okay, we had a lot of equipment that we had to manage and make sure we were stocking our warehouse and stuff and getting that large order in for 410A equipment to make sure that we have product for you guys, whether you want to sell MultiPRO, whether you want to sell Flex or whatever.
Right.
But even though we put in that large order and it was bringing that stuff in, the goal here is so that we're stocked up going into next year. We have plenty of equipment. And then as we sell off that 410A equipment, then the R32 offering will start taking its place. So what I'm getting at here is even if we have R32 equipment in stock, we're not selling it until we deplete the 410A stock.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter whether or not we've talked about it yet or not, because we still are going to have a transitional period in 2025 to transition from 410A to our 32 equipment. But we've got to protect the interest of our company and you guys out there so that you have equipment to install. And that was a huge undertaking on our part to make sure that we're not in a situation where you're looking for equipment and we have no product to give you or sell you. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm explaining to you that was a huge undertaking. So some of the other manufacturers, and I'm only going by what I've heard, transitioned last summer to a lot of the R32 equipment, but they also had significant shortages.
Yeah.
And we're trying to avoid having equipment shortages.
Right.
By the plan that was put in place with our team to make all this happen.
Yeah. And there was a lot of work that went into that planning, and
a whole lot of work.
The goal is to make sure that we have product.
Correct.
So
now, commercial VRF is a different story. Those rules for R32 and stuff don't take place until 2026.
Right.
So, and then they'll probably have a sell-through as well. I haven't kept up with it because there's been enough of trying to keep up with this end of it.
Right.
But that's kind of where that's headed as well. So there'll be another transitional period of where we have 410A equipment in stock, and to be able to set ourselves up to still have equipment to be able to sell once we have to transition to R32 with that as well. So.
All right. And next question, Nancy says, what is error on the ME3100C7 central controller? I do not see any information on the grease site.
What was the error code?
It just says, what is error? I'm thinking maybe she forgot to put in the actual error code. Nancy, if you don't mind, give us the error code, and then we'll take a look and come back around to that. Arif says, can we order XE7C in place of XK46 without price add?
No.
Okay.
The answer to that is no. The reason why is because the XK46 is pre-boxed at the factory in with the cassettes.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's coming with the unit whether you want it or not.
Gotcha.
So, and then if you want the XE7C instead,
you have to buy that separately.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. And Arif also says, are we supplying line sets with MultiPRO?
No.
No. And then who is supplying the refrigerant? It comes in the unit?
Well, the unit's charged with refrigerant. The only refrigerant you're adding is what you need for the refrigerant lines.
So yeah, that's provided by the
wherever you buy your refrigerant from, local distributor or whatever.
Right. And then Kevin says, with the provided thermostat on MultiPRO air handlers, can the temperature and heat mode be set below 61?
No. Well, yes. There's
just like the mini splits, there's a vacation mode, right?
There's a vacation mode,
okay.
Yes, which sets it, I believe, at 46 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's 46. Yeah, if you, I believe there is I forget where the bulletin is.
It's also in the owner's manual for the controller.
It'll be in the manual how to set it. Mm-hmm. And then Nancy says, I see that it is giving you the AHRI number for ducted and non-ducted, but not mixed. In the system that you have is mixed. I guess the one you built on the...
I don't think it can give it to you for mixed.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure. That would be a product question.
Okay.
Sales question, I can't answer that.
Gotcha. And then Craig says, it would be nice to be able to add additional equipment to a system builder, say for another building or the same property. Currently, you're only able to add one system to a project.
But you can save each project as you build them. You can download it to your computer.
Gotcha. Error code, Nancy followed up, error code SD04.
I'd have to look it up.
Okay. We'll look it up and circle back around, maybe during a break or something.
Yep.
And let you know, Nancy. All right, I think that was it for now. Hold on, got a couple more.
Okay.
Kevin says it's not the remote, it's the wired controller. That's a good question. I don't think I've ever, as far as mini splits go anyway, I don't think I've ever set it on a wired controller.
There is a way to set it.
I believe there is, but I don't, right off the top of my head, I don't remember actually doing it. So we'll look into that, Kevin, and let you know. And then Nancy commented, are the extended performance data for the GMVV available? I guess that would be the 6, GMV6.
No, this is the B revision?
The GMVV, the one with 2 V's?
Yes.
That's the 6, right?
I don't know that they're on the website, but we can get that information to her.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. And that's it for now.
Would you make note of that for me?
I
So
will.
I remember to
Certainly.
get that sent to her.
Yeah, I'll get my notepad out.
Thank you. All right. I think that covers System Builder. And that was the main things we wanted to cover, was the quick reference guide, the System Builder app. Did she give us that error code?
Yeah, SD04. I'll make
Okay.
note of that too.
All right. Why don't we, I think we're going to go to a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll go through the PowerPoint. So we'll go ahead and start that break now. All right, welcome back, everyone. So like I said, when we got back from break, we jump into the PowerPoint and try to cover some of the installation procedures and some of the service procedures to the MultiPRO equipment. So without further ado, let's move on into that. So I always like this slide. I show it about every time. Just, make sure you're picking the right product for the right application, and think about what you're doing there. Make sure you're selecting the right indoor unit. Make sure you're following the proper load requirements for the room. Make sure you're considering how your airflow is going to be, whether you're doing it off a cassette, a ducted unit, air handler, any of that. How are you going to route your refrigerant piping? Remember, with MultiPRO, you got to insulate both refrigerant lines. Your condensate pipe routing, are you going to be using a condensate pump? Are you going to be gravity drain? Where is that water going to go? And then, obviously, if you're using air handler, duct design, aesthetics, all that. So just things to think about on the job. So we have the new MultiPRO Ultra. It's up to 23 SEER 2. Liquid-cooled inverter. 5 ton is now available with Ultra heating, which we didn't have before. Main board is vertically mounted. The new models are GMVV 36, GMVV 48, GMVV 60. So there's your dead giveaway. If you see VV in the model number, you know that's an Ultra. If you only see one V in the model number, that is a standard heat pump. So, all right, moving on. So there's a picture of the inverter driver in the new Ultra machine. It is a one board, very much like we were just talking about yesterday with the new R32 Flex. It's one board. It's a liquid cooled inverter. You can see that liquid line going through that aluminum channel that's going to keep that board cool. It's actually notated in the piping diagram as well. Right behind this, inside the machine, is also the filter board and a breaker. So I'm going to pause right there for a second and have Nick bring this camera around to where I got this unit at. Make sure he's on board with me. All right, so right in here, and I think I can turn this where you can get a good shot on the camera. Right in here is the breaker.
Can't hear you, Nick.
Bear with us 1 second. All right, so here's the breaker. Now, this is supposed to be factory shipped with that breaker on. But if you're installing this unit and for some reason you find out that you got power to the unit and the display board's not coming up and everything, most likely this breaker was left off at the factory. I've only had a couple instances where that happened. Well, I wanted you to be aware of it. So here's where the breaker is located. This is a unit that we had taken that inadvertently got shipping damage. I don't even know the whole story, but so we ripped it all apart for show and tell. So anyway, with that said, so if you have all the panels and everything on this unit and you need to get to that breaker, all you got to do is pull the top panel off, and you can reach right over the top panel, turn the breaker on, and you should be good to go, okay? This breaker, what it does is, if it's a high pressure switch trip, it creates a shunt circuit and trips the breaker off, okay? So if you ever have a high pressure situation and you have no power to the unit when you show up to the job, you probably had a high pressure situation and it tripped the breaker. But I can tell you that's going to be very rare. Reason being it being very rare is because of all the other pressure sensors and the way the machine operates. When it starts seeing high head pressure, it's going to start saving itself, slowing the compressor down to hopefully keep you from having that high pressure event where it would actually get to the point of creating that shunt circuit and tripping that breaker. So, but while I got the camera on me here, I'll go ahead and spin this thing around where you guys can see.
I don't think that coil's supposed to be like that, Greg.
No, it ain't supposed to be like that. That's a little beat up, but that's okay. Works good for show and tell, right? So here's the whole inverter driver. This is where you'll see that machine. I kind of like this. You take this front panel off. It's not hard to take the front panel off. And it's really not hard at all to get the side and back panel off. That's all one piece. You pop that off. There's another small panel that would be down around the bottom down there. Your refrigerant lines can come in the back of the unit, they can come in the front of the unit, and they can come in the side of the unit, just to kind of let you know down there in the bottom. Also, you will see this. I just pulled it off the compressor down there. I'm just pointing this out. This is shipped. There's like a plastic guard that goes all across the front of this thing, and this is attached to it. The Alter units do have shipping brackets on the compressor feet. There's 2 brackets, not all 3 feet, just 2 of the feet have them brackets. So when you're installing the unit, you do have to make sure you remove those 2 panels, get down in there and take those shipping brackets off of that compressor. So make sure you guys are doing that. And like I said, when you open this, take that front door off, this is front center telling you, hey, remove those shipping brackets. So just kind of an FYI, that is on this machine. Wanted to make sure you're aware of it. The service valves are inside the unit, but we got a lot better clearance with them now as far as your gauge access and stuff like that. The EVs are really easy to get to, in case you maybe got one that wasn't all the way on or whatever, which again, very rarely happens. Your D1 and D2 wiring, your L1 and L2 wiring, it's all rather easy to get to. The electrical knockouts are in the bottom of the unit. Again, I don't have those panels because they were so beat up and damaged, but so you can come in with the side for electrical, you can come in the front for electrical. These machines also come with a real nice rubber boot.
Yeah, that goes around everything.
You got a knockout where your refrigerant lines go in, and the rubber boot will go up into there, and it kind of sticks out pretty good distance, and you just put zip ties around it.
That way the mice can't get in.
Yep, it seals it so that no mice or anything else can get up inside that unit. So it was a really nice added feature to the new
Or if
Ultra
you're somewhere
units.
tropical geckos.
Yeah. Now, I don't know about ants. It might not keep
And
them
it's
out.
not going to keep the ants out.
Or them little Asian beetles.
Yeah.
But they have improved that significantly. So, what else we got here? You spin this around. You can kind of see, this metal bracket's in the way here, but you kind of see the bottom here. That's where the filter board is. So your power, the way the power is routed, the power comes into your power supply, comes up to the filter board, out of the filter board, right here into the top of the main board, just to kind of give you an idea how it goes.
The filter board's right back here.
Correct.
Just like the Flex is.
Very much like the
32
Flex
setup
32
that we looked
is.
at yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also in here, and I remember seeing it, I got to find it again.
What you looking for?
The fusible plug.
Oh.
I lost it.
I don't remember on this one where it is.
I don't remember either. I know it was pretty easily accessible. That's why I'm so dumbfounded that it's not like sticking right out in front of me. It's not there. Right here. I'm blind as a bat.
It's on your side, Greg.
The fusible plug is right here. So it ain't that often that we get that call, but I want to point that out. This fusible plug has got like a little lead fill in it. And
If it gets too hot.
if it gets too hot, or for the most part, what I've dealt with is if it's leaking, it's because there's a defect in the fusible plug. So you would lose the entire charge. But if you put a backup wrench on there, you can unscrew that fusible plug, screw a new fusible plug into it, and be able to evacuate the system and charge the system back up.
Yeah.
They've relocated this that I've seen on the new Ultras,
On the new Ultras.
where it's less likely to give you any problems.
And the Flex.
So, just kind of an FYI. Gree listened to us about that.
Yes,
we had
they did.
complaints about that. We brought it to their attention, and it was moved into it. So, and I can tell you guys this. I've dealt with many different product lines that's required. I don't know exactly what the requirement is. I've never been able to get a straight answer on that, but they have to put them in there.
Yeah.
So there's no getting rid of it.
Some type of UL requirement or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes. So, anyway, I think that was all I really wanted to cover. There's a lot going on there, but I'll tell you, even though this machine's all beat up, the coils and everything's beat up,
It's nice and neat, isn't it?
I think it's a nice, neat installation. I like the way they put all the rubber grommets and straps and everything on to keep you from having pipes vibrating and leaking and stuff like that. I think
One of the coolest things when I visited the factory was their sound room. So they have a room with this door that's this thick, and they put this unit in there, and they run it and test it, and they have a gajillion sensors that they put everywhere to see where the vibration is, and that helps them locate these
Oh, really?
dampeners, these grommets properly, so that if this is vibrating at a frequency that matches, then this is going to cause some vibration, and then they'll place that there to get rid of it, to change that frequency. So it's pretty interesting how they do all that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know they did it that way. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for other mini split or VRF manufacturers, but because they may be. But I can tell you, in unitary product, I've never seen.
They don't do any.
I've never
any
seen
of
it
that.
strapped up like that.
No.
I think it's amazing what they do. So, anyway, all right, we'll move back to the PowerPoint. I just wanted to had that machine up there kind of for show and tell. Thought we'd discuss some of that. Moving on, again, you know, make sure your refrigerant lines are going to be neat and proper and not looking like that, put it that way. So the indoor units. All of the indoor units with MultiPRO are 230 volt power supplied. There is no 120 volt options for indoor units. So we do recommend that you have a means of disconnect, because the last thing you want to do, I mean, because you can have like 4 wall mounts or 4 cassettes, even possibly 4 ducted units, all on one 15 amp 230 volt circuit. But when you're there to service the system, you don't want to have to turn off power to all of them at once. So if you just have a means of disconnect at those indoor units, that's highly recommended. It does not have to be an AC disconnect like you see here. It can simply just be a 15 amp 2-pole switch, as long as we're killing power to both L1 and L2, so it's safe to get our hands in there and work on the machine. Part of the reason why I decided that we're going to cover this again, going over installation and stuff, because I don't think the message has gotten out there to everybody that is now being introduced to and installing MultiPRO. But this is a good example of showing you how MultiPRO is versus mini-split multi-zone in the wiring. So on a mini-split multi-zone unit such as you see here, you have individual line sets for each indoor unit and the 14-4 wire that will power the indoor units. So your 14-4 wire is also your communication and power supply to your indoor units. MultiPRO is done differently. You will have a power source, and it could be individual power source or sharing power source to each one of the indoor units. But that has nothing to do with your communication. That is going to be your 18-2 stranded comm wire that is going to run a daisy chain from the outdoor unit to your indoor units, and then daisy chain from there to the next one, from there to the next one. Your power supply for outdoor and your power supply for indoors are completely separate, unless you would use that adapter that we showed you in the quick reference guide, where you could actually power the indoors from the outdoor unit. Again, if it's a new installation, I would highly recommend that you come out of the breaker panel and have a separate circuit, not power it off the outdoor unit. That, like I said, that is really more geared to, you've got an existing multi-zone system that you're going to be replacing with a MultiPRO system, and trying to get power to them individual indoor units is going to be a little trickier than if you just use that power adapter for the outdoor unit. All it is, if you look at that power adapter, all it is inline 15 amp fuses in that wiring harness, so it fuses the indoor units. All right, moving on. So I want to talk about the wiring a little bit. So it is not required that you use grounded shielded wire with MultiPRO, but it is highly recommended just to shield out any interference. But if you're going to do grounded shielded, it's very important that you do it properly. Our recommendation is that you would hook that grounded shield wire, this bare wire right here, to the outdoor unit, and then as you have your cables, such as this right here, going in the indoor unit, so like this air handler, for example, would have 2 of these cables, one coming from the outdoor unit, one going to your next indoor unit. What you want to do is just hook up your D1 and D2s, and then take your grounds and splice them together. Realistically, you don't even really got to use a wire nut. That ground wire is so fine. All you got to do is twist it together, and then what I'll tell guys to do is lay that back on that casing, and then just wrap it with electrical tape. That way, this aluminum shield, just tear it off of there. What we don't want is that ground to be able to touch anything in here. Ground, we don't want to touch in H1, H2, we don't want to touch in anything. And then you're going to carry that same pattern all the way through till you get to the last indoor unit. You do have to install this resistor that comes shipped with the outdoor unit. That is a 1/4 watt, 120 ohm resistor. And it's already got the little U channels on it for you to be able to hook it up to D1 and D2, and it just parallels D1 and D2. If for some reason you lose this resistor, if you go on Amazon, you can buy, I bought a pack of 100 of them, quarter watt, 120 ohm resistors for $5. So they're not hard. We don't stock those because they're so easily bought on Amazon. It's just not worth our trouble to try and stock them. So, but again, they do come shipped in the bag in the outdoor unit. So, the grounded shield. The reason why you don't put grounds on both ends is because now it becomes a ground conductor, and it'll actually conduct, you know, like if you get electrical interference, like say in here, it don't have one direct path. The whole idea with grounded shielded is any interference, whether it be from a fluorescent light, it be from another inductive load, whatever it is, any of that trying to interfere into that comm line hits that ground wire, has one path to ground and gets rid of it. When you have more than one path to ground, it just stays on the wire, kind of bouncing back and forth. And it doesn't really get rid of your interference. With MultiPRO, they are self-addressing, so you don't have to set dip switches or anything like that. It will automatically adjust. You have to maintain a 50% connection capacity ratio. So I always make sure I stress that. So like if I lose one indoor unit, let's say this is like a 9K, let's say this is a 4-ton unit, and this is a 2-ton air handler, you got a 9K and a 7K, I could actually lose both of these because this 2-ton is still going to be 50% of the outdoor unit, the system will still run. But if I've got a 9K and a 7K here, and I lose the 2-ton, then the system can't run because now I'm below 50% connected capacity. Okay, so that's good information to have as well. So it will continue to heat and cool. Your H1 and H2 connections are for your wired controller. The wired controllers come factory set up for a 1-to-1 connection. So in other words, one controller per indoor unit. Make sure you leave it that way if you have one indoor unit, because if you change that in the project settings, it's going to give you an error code. So if you're going to, and you can control up to 16 indoor units with one wired controller, it's done in a daisy chain fashion across H1 and H2, just like you would D1 and D2, only you're using H1 and H2 because that's your controller connections. But you have to go into this controller and say, hey, it'll ask you for number of IDUs. A lot of guys get that confused. They think that's the number of IDUs on the system. The controller is not asking you how many indoor units are on the system. It is asking you how many indoor units is it controlling. The new XC7C controller, we actually had them change that, and it will say number of indoor units controlled by controller. So again, if I'm controlling 3 indoor units, I need to go into the project settings, set that to 3 because I'm controlling 3 indoor units. If I was controlling 4, I would set number of indoor units in the project settings to 4. That'll keep you from getting an error code. And it will keep you from completing debug. Total liquid piping on a 2 and 2.5 ton is 820 feet, 3, 4, and 5 ton is 984 feet. 3, 4, and 5 ton ultra is 492 feet. Maximum outdoor unit to indoor unit, giving you all those dimensions as well. Maximum length from the first branch to the indoor unit, meaning from your Y branch or header, you can go up to 131 feet on all of them. Height difference between indoor units, that's from indoor unit to indoor unit, is 33 feet on 2 and 2.5 ton, 49 feet on the rest. Outdoor unit height, indoor unit height difference, outdoor unit above or indoor unit above. These are your differences. You can go 98 feet on 2 and 2.5 ton standard, 164 feet with the outdoor unit above, 131 feet when the outdoor unit is below, and on the 3, 4, and 5 ton it's the same as far as those requirements go. Oh, let me go back. Connectable indoor units. So 2 ton was 4, 2.5 was 4, and so on. This is also referenced in that quick reference guide. This was how many indoor units you're allowed to do on those systems. So how we calculate that connection ratio. So it's easy math. It's the same thing that selection software is doing. It's the same thing that the System Builder app is doing. You have to have no more than 135% connected capacity. So it's got to be between 50 and 135%. So this is just kind of giving you an example. If you had a living room, if your load was 20,000, well, we don't have a 20,000 BTU indoor unit, so you go with a 24. Bedroom 1 is 10,000. Well, we don't have a 10,000 BTU unit, so we go with the 12, and so on. So our indoor unit capacity is 54,000 BTUs. We take your 54,000 BTUs divided by a 4-ton outdoor unit. We're at 112.5% connection ratio. We're perfectly fine. We're within the 50 to 135% ratio. So that's where we get them numbers from. Things to consider when you're doing MultiPRO and understanding it. The main control controls the mode. So if the master indoor unit or the main indoor unit is set to heat, all of the indoor units will run only in heat. You cannot run them in cooling mode. Because remember, these are heat pumps, not heat recovery machines. There is no mode conflict. The main indoor unit controls the mode. All indoor units will operate in the mode selected by the main indoor unit, so keep that in mind. If there's a room that will have a much different temperature setting than the rest of the room, such as a garage or attic room, we recommend a separate unit being used for that. The reason for that is because let's say you have that loft unit and you've got it in heating mode, and you set that unit, because nobody's up there, you set it at 61 degrees for heat mode. The rest of the units in the house are set to 72 degrees. You're going all winter long, everybody's happy. And your master indoor unit's down on that first floor. And then you go in there and you change on that main indoor unit or master indoor unit, you change that to cool mode. Once you change that to cool mode, it's going to hold that set point on that unit up in that attic or loft at 61 degrees until somebody goes and changes it. So that thing's going to be up there just screaming at 61 degrees in cooling mode, taking advantage of your system, right? And also you're overcooling a room that you're not even using. The other caveat to that is like a garage. So if you've got like a wall mount in the garage and you keep that thing at 75 degrees or even 80 degrees and cool mode, and your kid goes out and gets on his bicycle and he leaves and he don't follow the rules that he was told, which means close the garage door when he leaves. So now you're air conditioning the neighborhood. So you've got a really high 95 degree heat load on that unit out there that's just going like crazy trying to air condition your neighborhood, which your neighbors won't even get a benefit from because it ain't got that much power. So, but it's taking away capacity from your indoor units. So especially if you've got, like say you're at that 120% connection ratio, well, okay, you're at 120% on your indoor units. So you're 20% above the capacity of the outdoor unit. Well, that's usually okay because you're typically not going to have all of the units running at one time. But if you've got that garage unit, the garage door is open, it's in cool mode, it is eating up your 20% over quickly. So you're going to be starving on your other indoor units and you may have a hard time maintaining the load in there. So it's just our recommendation, you're best off. I'm just giving you one crude example that if you're going to have you're going to do a system for like a garage or an attic or something like that, you're better off to just use a separate independent system. So hope everybody understood that. All right, so basic layout and piping layout. So You're going out to give this customer a bid. You're going to go out there and kind of lay it out. You're just going to walk the site, say, okay, this is roughly where I can keep my header, estimate how long your pipe runs are going to be, and so on. Locate where you would put a Y branch. The Y branch is FQ01AA. Again, these are in the quick reference guide, so you don't have to memorize this. And then we also have a 4-port header and an 8-port header. So let's say you're going out to the job and you're doing a quick layout for a 4-zone system. Remember what I said, try to keep these pipe sizes under 50 feet so that you're staying to the same size as the indoor units, particularly on the smaller units, because that's the ones that are using the smaller line sets. Like if you're doing an air handler and you're at like 2-ton or above, it's all going to, unless you get to 5-ton, that's going to be a 3/8, 5/8 connection, regardless of your pipe length, as long as we're not exceeding our maximum pipe length, okay? So with that said, you can kind of get a little general layout, and you also got to think of the rules of the piping. We talked about this already right at the beginning. Again, the header assemblies, they must be installed horizontal. They're designed to stack so that gas pipe will lay right in front of this liquid pipe, because you've got these pipes coming down at and then turning at a 90-degree angle. Just remember, you got to have 20 inches between the outlet of any one of these pipes to any elbow. So before you have a bend in that pipe, you got to have 20 inches of straight pipe. Same thing applies to the Y branches. These can be installed horizontal or vertical. Again, if you're doing horizontal, make sure you're keeping them level within 15 degrees. And then again, that 20-inch minimum before we go another Y or an indoor unit. So, all right, so basic layout. The system contains one outdoor unit, one indoor unit, or it could be one outdoor unit, 2 indoor units. It could be one outdoor unit and multiple indoor units using the 4-port or an 8-port header. Keep it simple. Basic layout is either one Y or one header only. All right, so then we follow the rules in place. Remember, this is always going to be 10 feet minimum, and that is sized by the outdoor unit. So that's easy to remember. Remember your maximum lengths, outdoor unit to indoor unit, maximum height, outdoor unit above indoor unit, and maximum height outdoor unit below indoor unit. Your pipe sizes, again, are, like I said, are sized by the outdoor unit. The only one that's going to be 3/8, 3/4 is the 5-ton. The rest of them are going to be 3/8, 5/8. Something to note about that. I don't have one of them dog legs with me, but I showed you on that MultiPRO Ultra where it has the service valves up inside that unit. The other thing I wanted to, we're going to cover today, so we'll come back to this. But the way the Ultras, the new Ultras are 3-ton, 4-ton, and 5-ton. All of those machines are built exactly the same. They look exactly the same. The service valves are exactly the same location. These rules still apply. In other words, the 3 and 4-ton are going to be 3/8 and 5/8. The 5-ton is going to be 3/8, 3/4. But on the new Ultra unit, those service valves in that unit are 3/4. They are not 5/8. With the machine comes dog legs. There's a long piece of pipe. I've got a picture of it. I'm going to show you our new quick reference guide for MultiPRO that we just got done getting it launched. It's on our website. It shows you a picture of them dog legs. So if you're doing a 4-ton, you can take that 5/8 pipe. It'll slip right into that dog leg, and you can braze it. If you're doing 5-ton and you're using 3/4 pipe out to your outdoor unit, you can either use the dog leg to braze it together, which is a pre-bent piece of pipe to route you to that service valve, or you can go ahead and bend it and do your own flare and hook it up right up to the service valve. But keep that in mind, those service valves, I'm just fair warning you, they are 3/4 service valves, and if you toss those dog legs, then you're going to need an adapter that's going to take you from 5/8 to 3/4 so that you can do a 3/4 flare connection at the outdoor unit. Again, I got a picture of that, and I will show it to you when we get to that quick reference guide, or quick start guide, I should say. All right, so agree MultiPRO basic layout limitations in a dual zone. A little more complex, but still simple. Size of your outdoor unit, the Y branch is determined by the outdoor unit. So this dotted line right here is going to be sized by the outdoor unit, as we talked about a minute ago. So if I'm doing a 4-ton, it's going to be 3/8, 5/8. If I'm doing a 5-ton, it's going to be 3/8, 3/4. Size of the Y branch to the indoor unit is determined by the indoor unit. So let's say this was a 2-ton air handler. I'd go down here, 18 to 48 is 3/8, 5/8. Let's say this is a 9K indoor unit here. I'd come down here. As long as I'm less than 50 feet or 49 feet, then my size pipe for there would be 1/4, 3/8 from here all the way to that indoor unit. And that's where I encourage you to try to locate this Y branch so that you're keeping these pipe lengths so you don't have to increase in size. All right, and there is some systems where it may be better for you to use a multiple Y branch setup. Again, that's going to be done in selection software so that we get everything right. But this example, I have a layout, so you got 10 feet to your Y branch, you got 40 feet between there and that Y branch. That pushes this Y branch way to the other end so that I can only got 32 feet to this indoor unit. And then I've got my 20 inches to that Y branch, and I'm at 31 feet and 28 feet here. So all of my indoor piping keeps it below that 49-foot range, and you don't have to worry about upsizing pipe. Like I said, I don't care if you upsize pipe on like the, let me go back a minute in my slides. So you're 18K and higher. Even if you go over 50 feet, you don't have to worry about it. It's going to stay 3/8, 5/8. But this 6K to 15K, your pipe sizes can change if you go above that 49 feet. Like I said, I just call it 50 feet. A foot's not going to make you or break you. But those are kind of the golden rules. So when you're walking a job site and trying to lay it out, and you know you're going to do a header system because that job is very applicable to do a header system. It's a 4-pipe job. You can easily lay this out, pencil whip it up, know all your pipe lengths, know you're within all these rules, know you're not going to have pipe size changes. You don't have to get on a computer or anything. You can size up all your line sets and everything and basically get them on order. Okay? That's the whole purpose of the basic layout. But there's jobs where, okay, no matter how I do this particular home, no matter where I locate that header that's feasible to locate it, I can't stay within that 49-foot rule. But because my condenser has to be located all the way at this end of the house or that end of the house or whatever, it may be advantageous to you to use multiple Ys so that we can keep all these foot lengths, these pipe lengths to the indoor units under that 49 feet. And it also may reduce your total length of pipe, because of the fact that you're able to use the Y branches and push our line sets to each indoor unit closer to the actual indoor unit, is what I'm getting at. Okay? All right. So with that, we got to understand how to use the selection software video, or how to use the selection software. So I said that wrong. And I pre-recorded a video because I can't show that to you live because it bounces screens. I've tried that before. It doesn't work. So what I did was I pre-recorded a video to show you exactly how to lay it out in selection software. So with that, we'll run that video so you know how to use selection software. And then we'll come back and talk about what you've seen in that video and some things that are wrong with the video or wrong with selection software that kind of contradicts what I just told you in basic layout. So, with that said, let's roll the video.
Okay, so here's how we use the selection software. So once you got the program loaded on your computer, make sure you are downloading the latest program from our website, because if you're using an older version and you're selling the new MultiPRO Ultra machine, that was added into the programming. So now this program, if you download the latest version, will have both the standard and the Ultra versions. So if you don't have the newer software, you won't be able to pull up the new MultiPRO Ultra machine. So make sure you got the latest software. Once you have that, and you got the program open, as I've got here, and we're going to go through it all. So it should say GRE LCAC Selector Ultimate. Across the top, you'll have your indoor unit, outdoor unit piping, wiring, central control, preview, and report. We'll talk about all of that. So the first thing we got to do is select our indoor units. So everything we sell is listed up here. Your air handlers, wall mounts, slim ducts, cassettes, whatever your intention to use is. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do an example program setup for you here. So we'll do air handler. And I always do manual selection, and it'll pull up the different air handlers in here. So let's do a 5-ton. Now I clicked it. It doesn't tell you for sure that it's going to stay there, but it does. And I'll show you what happens if that messes up on you. Okay. So, but also keep in mind down here, if you've got where your outdoor unit is above your indoors, you select here. If you're at the same level, you select here. If your outdoor unit is going to be below the indoor units, you select here. And if you highlight over, it kind of shows you the piping a little bit better. But so if you select here, meaning you're going to be at the same level, you can't change this height difference because it doesn't matter. You don't have a height difference. But if your condenser's above, you can change that. And I'll show you how you do that. You can just delete the 0 and type in 20. So now it's showing that the outdoor unit's above the indoor units, and you got a 20-foot drop to the indoor units. Now I can also do the other way around, select here, and I can always change that number as well. So make sure you're setting that up correctly. In here, as far as your dry bulb cooling temp, wet bulb temp, relative humidity you're shooting for, and heating, all of this only pertains if you're trying to make sure the equipment is meeting your design parameters. And you can very well do that. But if you're just looking for piping layout and making sure you're getting charged and everything right, you don't really have to fill all that information in. All right. So with that said, and that's what I'm after showing here, is just making sure you get your piping laid out properly and you got the correct additional charge calculated. All right. So with that said, so I'm not changing any of this. So with that said, I've already did that. I've already did manual selection, selected the 5-ton unit, and add. And then I can close this, and you'll see where a 5-ton unit was added. Well, the only reason why I did that is to show you how to get rid of it if I didn't want that, because I don't want that unit. I don't want a 5-ton. And then we can go back to air handler again, and we're going to do manual selection again. And I really just wanted a 3-ton. So I clicked it. You can see I clicked it. I close this. I put add. And now you see I added a 3-ton unit. And then you can go up here and you can actually select a different unit if you want. So let's do a wall mount. We're still in manual selection. So let's do a 1-ton wall mount. And then I can close that and I can hit add. Oh, it didn't like what I did. So let me do this again. And manual selection. I'll do the 12 again. Add. There it goes. There's my wall mount. I don't know why it was being goofy with me for a minute there, but that's okay. All right. So now if I wanted another 12K. So if I wanted a 3-ton and two 12Ks, I could just add another 12K. Or if I wanted to add, let's say, a cassette, let's do the 360. I can click on that, manual selection, and let's say I'm going to do a 9K cassette. Click on it once. I hit add. Oh, it didn't like me. Manual selection, 9K, click, add, and there it went. All right. So I've got my 9K cassette. I've got my 1-ton wall mount, and I got a 3-ton air handle. All right. So now, if that's all I'm using on indoors, then I can move on to outdoor unit. And you got to hit this plus button, because what you have to do is you have to change this to single hertz or single phase. Sorry. And it's automatically populated heat pump. We do not have a single phase BRF unit. We only have a single phase MultiPRO heat pump. All right. So with that said, then you come down here, you take these and you drag them in. There's 1, 2, 3. And then I got to add my outdoor unit. Now, when I add my outdoor unit, if I want the Ultra Heat, I can keep it on Ultra Heat GMV6 Mini. That would be the MultiPRO Ultra. Or I can do the standard, with the GMV5 MultiPRO. And then I can do a manual selection. I just want to show you this. So this shows you the capabilities you could do. You could either do the 4-ton or the 5-ton. Just want to let you know the LA series is the previous model. Those are going to end up being deleted off of here. So don't select those because we don't have them anymore. Make sure you're getting everything you're selecting is going to end in LC, whether it's Ultra or Standard. So select whichever one you want. And this also gives you connection ratio. Remember, with MultiPRO, your connection ratio has to stay between 50 and 135%. So if I wanted to use the 4-ton with the indoor units that I had selected, I could choose that. I'd be at 118%, almost 119% connection ratio. If I did the 5-ton, then I would be at 95% connection ratio. All right. Well, I'm going to do the new Ultra just to show you that too. Click on the Ultra. I do manual selection. And it shows that I have the 4-ton Ultra or the 5-ton Ultra. And you'll see the difference in the model numbers here. The Ultra has 2 V's in it. It still ends in LC. The model numbers are almost identically the same, only the Ultra will have a VV in them. So I could do the 4-ton at 118.75%, or I could do the 5-ton at 95%. So let's go with the 5-ton. Now that I hit confirm, now it loaded it all in. So I've got my outdoor unit, which is the GMV V60, which is what I chose, and the indoor units that I chose as well. So now we go into piping. All right. So as I've said in training, if you want to do multiple Ys, you have to lay it out in selection software. And here's why, because it allows you to be able to set the piping and get your lengths in there, and it'll calculate whether or not the pipe sizes need to change at all. So you can also do it with a header assembly as well, if you'd rather still stay with that. The system builder app that we have automatically defaults when you have more than 2 indoor units. It automatically defaults to the header, and it won't let you do multiple Ys. So if you've got a job that you really want to do multiple Ys, you need to lay this out in selection software. So let me show you that first. So if I click on the red line here, whatever your pipe length is going to be, remember, we always want to say at least 10 feet. So let's just put in 10 feet. And then, if you don't know exactly how many elbows, I would put in at least 2. to start with. You can always come back and redo this program afterwards to make sure you got it right. So it's automatically going to move your pipes. I was just going to show you that. So it did this pipe. It's got 10 feet and 2 elbows there. But I can go here. And let's say this is going to be 30 feet. And we'll put 2 elbows next. And it automatically jumps to the next pipe. Yeah, it does let me move that out of the way. Let me show you that. So, all right. Let's say this is 28 feet. And we'll put it down as 2 elbows. Next. And this one's going to be 40 feet. And 2 elbows. Next. And then let's say this is going to be let's say 40 feet. So here's where I want to show you something. And 2 elbows. Oh, 2 elbows. Finish. So this 9K wall mount uses 1/4 3/8 piping. All right, let's do this. This kind of goes back to the basic rule layout. 55 feet. Next. Finish. It changed that pipe size from 3/8 to 3/8. So that's fine. Just keep in mind, you're going to have to, increase the pipe size from here. So you're going to have 3/8, 3/8 all the way to the indoor unit. And then you're going to have to reduce back down to 1/4 to be able to hook it up. Okay. So that's where I say with with Y branches, if you could possibly set this up to where, let's say, maybe I move this Y. Okay. So let's go back here. Let's move this Y. If you're doing this on the actual layout at 40 feet. Next, I'm gonna close that for a minute. So now that pushes this wide, let's say down further. So let's hopefully that would reduce this pipe size. So maybe instead of that, we'll be at like 35 feet. Next, finish. And then here, let's say this is at, let's say it's 49 feet. Next, finish. 3/8 quarter. So now your line set size is the same as your connection on the indoor unit with that 9K. So now you don't have to worry about having this larger pipe size and then having to reduce it back down. This is gonna be the exact size pipe that hooks up to that unit. Same with here. It's gonna be 1/4 all the way to that unit. Because I'm not, so now 49 feet, they say 50 feet or 49 feet, but I'll do this one more time. Let's change that to 50. Next. Finish. See, it's kind of bouncing around. It don't know what to do with it because so it did it though. It's 3/8, 3/8. So that's 1 foot difference. I don't think you could still probably stay 1/4 3/8 there. That 1 foot's not going to make you or break you. But like I said, if I go 49 feet or less, it's the same as our basic layout shows, it keeps my pipe sizes the same. So what you want to try to always do with multiple Y branches is try to keep your Y branches pushed out, and whatever your piping layout is, push your your Y branches out to where you try to keep this line set from the Y branch to your indoor unit, this one from the Y branch to that indoor unit, and then this from this Y branch to that indoor unit. If you keep all of those under the 49 feet with these smaller indoor units, then you keep it below 49 feet, you're not going to have any pipe size changes. Now, when you get up here into like the 3 ton or a 3.5 ton or a 4 ton, those are all going to be 3/8, 5/8. So even if you were at 55 feet here, your pipe size is not going to change. And I'll show you that. So we're at 30 feet with this pipe size. Let me change that to 55 feet. Next, finish. 55 feet, we're still 3/8, 5/8 pipe. Okay. All right. And it gives you your additional charge amount. Now, let's say I wanted to do this whole layout and use the branch, the header assembly instead. All right. So, click on that and it says all designs will be reset. Please confirm whether or not you want to. So, yes. All right. So now what I got to do is you got to drag these in. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I goofed. Sorry. First, I got to drag this in and always drag it down and then drag it over until you get the check mark. There we go. Now I take the indoor unit. A second. I take the indoor unit, drag it into here, then to the check mark. Drag it into here, into the check mark. Drag it into here, and then into the check mark. There we go. Now, now I can do my pipe sizes again. Let's say this is 10 feet. Again, we want to keep a 10-foot minimum. Next. And then this one's going to be still, again, this is the 3 ton. So it doesn't really matter. I could go 50 feet and that pipe size is not going to change. Next. So let me close that for just a minute. I want to show you this. So we're still 3/8, 5/8 pipe. Now these are the ones that we tell you stay under 49 feet. So let's do this. And we'll do 48 feet, 2 elbows. Next, we'll do 48 feet, 2 elbows, finish. All right. I got that unit, that unit, and that unit. Now this you would just cap. Okay. All right. So wiring. So it kind of gives you just a wiring layout. Your D1 and D2 wires, it shows you your daisy chain there. And then it tells you what controls you're going to get. So the air handlers come with the XE70 33H controller. And then the wall mount and the cassette come with the remotes. So, and this is just showing you that you got to have 208, 230 volt single phase 60 hertz power to that unit, that unit, that unit. Now, this is 15 amp, but that's without a heat kit. If you add a heat kit in there, that goes up. Your power supply is going to be different. So keep that in mind as well. And then this is also showing you that matching resistance. So at the last indoor unit, you have to have that 1/4 watt, 120 ohm resistor that comes shipped with the outdoor unit. And you connect that across D1 and D2. Same thing we talked about in all the rest of the training. Central control. We have the central controls. They're pretty nice. I just don't know that it would warrant the expense with MultiPRO, especially if you got a job that's only going to have 3 indoor units. But just a kind of FYI, they are available in case you decided you wanted to use that. And then you can go to the preview page. I almost never use that, but you can hit the preview page. There we go. So that kind of gives you a full layout. So it gives you what everything means. System proposal, outdoor unit details, indoor unit detail, piping diagrams, wiring diagrams, all of that stuff as you kind of go through it here. It lists all your equipment. It lists your header assembly. Now, if you go back to the other one where we were using multiple Ys, it would tell you the number and the quantity of Ys. And then reducer expander pipes if you need them. And then your controllers that are going to come with it, all your pipe lengths. And then it gives you your extra refrigerant, 2.44 pounds of refrigerant. And it actually gives you an estimate to your communication line wiring, so on. So all of this is just kind of a preview of the whole job layout. And then you can actually go to report and you get that same information. You can do a summary doc. You just got to name the file. So this is just for training. And then as long as you choose the destination file, so you can send, to this PC or wherever your document's going to go and export it, it'll send a summary documentation. Make sure you check that. Make sure you check VRF so it does go, and hit export, and it'll send this file directly to it. So then when you're all done, anyway, that's how you do it. You just export it out and it'll send it right to your computer. And then you can close it. You can save the job or not. I'm going to say no, but if you save it, it'll be in there when you get back into your software. If you needed to go back in there and your actual piping on the job was different than what your layout was, you go in there, you pull up that same file, you can make your changes and get your new charge amount and all that. Okay, that's it. Well, with that, let's get back to the training.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I covered that thoroughly enough so you guys, know how to use selection software. It's not hard, a little tricky how you drag and drop stuff in there. But one thing I think you will notice that kind of debunks what System Builder did. So System Builder showed that when you went over 49 feet, it would change the liquid line pipe and the gas pipe. And then selection software only changed the liquid line pipe. It did not change the gas pipe. So what I'm telling you is there's a glitch in the software on selection software. So when it increases the liquid line size, it should also be increasing the gas pipe size. So when you go from 1/4 inch pipe to 3/8, then your 3/8 goes to half. That's what the selection software should be doing as well, and it's not. So just so you know, System Builder's correct. The selection software is wrong. It does not affect your charge. Your charge is based off your liquid line, not off of your suction line. So just an FYI. So don't worry about that, but keep that in mind. If you're laying out a job on selection software and it increases your liquid line size, you also need to increase your gas pipe size by 1 pipe size. So if you're going from 3/8 to half, or if it was from half going to 5/8, it's just going to be 1 pipe size. Just like the liquid line went from 1/4 to 3/8. So they both, and we did confirm that with GREE. They should both be increasing. So with that said, moving on to some more information about installation of these units. Just kind of an FYI, if you do put a condensate pump on a wall mount, the wall mount does have a place to connect the float. If you look at this picture closely, it says pump down here. That doesn't work properly. So what I tell guys to do is take your pump power, go directly to L1 and L2 on your terminal block, and then take your float, take this jumper off, undo those 2 screws, take the jumper out, and hook your float on those 2. If If the float opens on the condensate pump, you will get an L3 air code. To get to that little jumper on that wall mount, you do have to take the outer cover off, and you'll take the cover off the electric box assembly. But you don't have to pull that board all the way out. All you got to do, that board will slide towards you, and you only got to slide it a couple inches. That little jumper right there is right at the very end of the board. It's not that hard to get to, so just kind of an FYI. On the wall mounts as well, there is no H1, H2 if you want to use a wired controller. Your H1, H2 is going to be this yellow and white wire hanging down to this Molex. Just cut that Molex plug off and connect one of your wires to white and one of your wires to yellow, and then at the controller you'll hook one wire to H1, one wire to H2. It is not polarity sensitive, so you don't have to worry about that either. If you actually took this thing apart and really looked at it like I did, you follow the wires all the way up, they're soldered onto the board at H1 and H2. Real quick about the, whether it be for a cassette or a ducted unit, they do give you this breakaway hose, which will allow you to clamp onto the drain line of the unit and a clamp onto the PVC pipe that you're running for your drain. Keep in mind your pump in that unit is only good for 39 3/8 inches from the bottom of the unit to the center of your drain pipe there. So that's how much lift you have to that pump. It's not a lot. So don't exceed that, otherwise you're not going to be able to pump up and out, okay? Also, on all these units too, they give you the pump connection and they give you the gravity connection. So if you use the cavity drain on these, then go to the board and unplug the pump. There's no reason to have the pump powered just to have it unplugged. It's a Molex plug, it plugs right into the board. Unplug that. There's no reason to have it hooked up if you're not using it. Okay? All right. Okay. So obviously you can mount your outdoor units, make sure it's secure, use a standard wall bracket in snow-prone locations. This is very much like we were talking about with the flex unit. You don't want this thing right on a concrete pad, because when it goes in the cold climate areas, this thing keeps going into defrost. You're going to build up ice from that concrete pad all the way up. And on the back side of this unit, it's going to build all the way up to that coil, and it can cause damage to the condenser coil. So make sure you're getting this thing up off the ground, I'd say about 4 inches at minimum, so we don't get any ice damming. Or a wall bracket, that's fine as well. So installations are found in the control box with the compressor. Do not throw them away. Again, there's other accessories in there that you may need later. One of those accessories is going to be that 1/4 watt, 120 ohm resistor you need for your D1 and D2 wiring. The requirement is 8 hours of compressor warm-up. So we kind of want you guys to think about this in another aspect. So as soon as you go to install that unit, hook up your whip first, get power applied to that unit so you get that crankcase heater while you're doing your refrigerant piping, any ductwork connections or whatever else you might be doing. Let's go ahead and get that thing warmed up. There is an exception to this rule, which I'll talk about later. And we'll get into that later. So, okay. Always flow nitrogen while brazing. Things to keep in mind, if you're doing a whole system like we've talked with pipe with the basic layout, you're going to have a whole pretty long line of piping. To try to flow nitrogen from that outdoor unit all the way through all that piping, you'd have to crank that pressure up quite a bit by the time, so you'd have nitrogen like if you're 60, 80 feet away. So what we try to recommend for you to do is get closer to where you're actually brazing. In other words, start at the furthest part away from the unit, hook your nitrogen up there, rig up your nitrogen so you're flowing some nitrogen, and braze those connections, and work your way back to the condenser to where eventually you're hooking up right at the service valves, flowing your last little bit of nitrogen while you're brazing. Because trying to flow enough nitrogen for all of your piping at once to go through and braze it. That's a long, and then what will happen is you'll turn the pressure up enough so you get nitrogen to flow all the way at the other end, but as you start closing them up, now your pressure is going to be too high. You're going to go back out, reduce your nitrogen pressure. I'm just telling you, it's going to be easier if you can get your nitrogen a little closer to where you're flowing. Remember, you don't need much. You just need to displace the oxygen in that pipe. It's a very, very low flow rate. Remember, both pipes have to be insulated, liquid and suction. We do give you a nitrogen pressure test recommendation. Start with 150 psi for 3 minutes, increase it to 325 for 5 minutes, 500 pounds for 1 hour, just to ensure you don't have any leaks, because the last thing you want to do is let that charge out of that condenser and then find out you got a leak. And then we also give you, there's a lot of piping with MultiPRO, so we recommend that you do a triple evacuation. So we kind of give you a recommendation to pull it down to at least 4,000 microns, hold for 15 minutes, break it with 3 pounds of nitrogen, hold for 20 minutes, pull down to 1,500 microns, hold it for 2 minutes, break with nitrogen, hold for 20 minutes, pull down to 500 microns, hold for an hour. Does not rise above 1,000 microns. Now you've done 2 things to ensure you don't have any leaks. You have done a nitrogen pressure of 500 pounds for an hour to ensure you don't have any leaks. And you also did a triple evacuation, which means you got a good, clean, dry system. And you also made sure it held 500 microns for at least an hour. I love when guys do vacuums, like I let the vacuum pump run all night. There's no reason for you to have to run a vacuum pump all night. You should be able to use a micron gauge, and if you're not achieving if your microns don't keep dropping, then either you need to break with nitrogen so that you can get your vacuum to come down, or you may need to change the oil in your pump. Or, like we always talked about in many of our trainings, use core removal tools. Get that Schrader core in that service valve out of your way so that you get a better flow rate and you'll achieve these vacuums a whole lot faster. All right, enough on that. Calculating your additional charge. We already gave you the methods through System Builder and through the selection software, where it tells you what your charge amount is. But with the basic layouts, you can also calculate that charge yourself. It's pretty simple to do. You just total up all your 1/4-inch pipe, liquid pipe only, not the gas pipe. Total liquid pipe, 1/4-inch, total liquid pipe, 3/8. So in this example, we got 45 of 1/4 times 0.24 is 11 ounces. Total pipe of 3/8. This example, we got 18 feet at 0.58, that's 10 ounces. And then on the standard units, you're going to add 10.5 ounces for any number of units over 2. So if I got 3, I add 10.5 ounces. If I had 4, I'd add 21 ounces, and so on. So this total additional charge for this system would be 31.5 ounces. Now again, this only is good for the standard units. You only have 1 B in the model number. It does not apply to the alter units with 2 V's in the model number. The alter units with the 2 V's in the model number, that does require you to run it through System Builder or selection software to calculate that charge. The reason we did this for you is because if you look at the manual, and you can, if you want to, follow the service manual and calculate the charge. But the math is quite intuitive. What I'm telling you is you can lay it out in selection software once you've done it a couple times, or you can lay it out in System Builder once you've done it a couple times and get the charge amount a whole lot faster than you could add it up, do all the math yourself and calculate the charge. And that way you know there's no error and you're going to get the right charge amount. So that's what I would recommend. Something else, when you're pulling a vacuum, on these systems, make sure you pull from both ports, because all of your indoor units have EEVs in it. You don't know for sure if the EEVs are open or closed. Supposedly they're not supposed to be closed all the way, but I've witnessed myself that they are sometimes all the way closed and you won't pull from one side to the other. So when you're adding additional charge into your line set, and I recommend you do this before you open the service valves, if you've got your thing all brazed in and you've done your evacuation, you're sitting on 500 microns, and let's say I got to add that 31.5 ounces, dump it in there. You can dump it in the liquid and the suction side. It doesn't matter. You've got multiple accumulators in there. So even though you're dumping liquid in the low side, you're fine. Leave the service valves. If you're dumping liquid in that low side though, also what we've talked about was the crankcase heater warm up. So if you're putting in charge into both sides to get the full 31.5 ounces to go in for you, or 60 ounces or whatever it may be, then I would just kind of take a break for a little bit, let that crankcase heater keep that compressor warm for about another hour before you actually start the unit up. So go ahead and open up your service valves, let that crankcase heater be energized for another hour before we actually commission the unit, okay? Just to ensure you don't have any liquid in there. All right. G1 and G2 are used for central control or automation, just kind of an FYI. So anytime you're going to have a job where you're going to have more than one outdoor unit and you're going to use central control or cool automation, and maybe you're not even planning on doing central control or cool automation at this time. The reason why I say it that way is because what if you do 6 condensers and a bunch of indoor units? Maybe it's somebody that's got a lot more money than I do, got a nice big fat house, and they've got 6 systems on the outdoor unit, which is not uncommon in the United States anymore. There's people out there got money, right? But they have no intention to do a central control. You get it all installed. You know, it'd be nice if I had one place in the house that I could do central control of the whole thing. Oh, okay, now we didn't bother to set it up preemptively, so that's what I'm telling you. If you pull up the central control installation instructions, you can go to greecomfort.com, you can pull up the central control installation instructions. It'll give you the address structure. It'll tell you what address, what dip switches to set for central control. So if you're putting in more than one condenser, condenser number 1, whatever you're going to call number 1, you don't have to change anything on those dip switches. They're factory all set to on. Okay? Then go to 2. Set it as address number 2 condenser. Set number 3 is number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. That way, if you ever decide to add central control or cool automation, it's going to address those things properly for you. So what's going to happen, now there's one other caveat to that for it to address properly. You got to run, just take an 18-2 wire and daisy chain from G1 and G2, from one unit to the next unit to the next unit to the next unit. You don't even have to have it going inside. Just between the condensers, G1 and G2, daisy chain it between the outdoor units. Now you apply power to all those outdoor units. It's going to address those units. Number 1, let's say it's got 4 indoor units. They're going to address 1, 2, 3, 4. When you turn on number 2, it's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8. When you turn on number 3, it's going to be 9, 10, 11, 12. You're not going to have duplicate addresses. You're ready to go. The customer didn't want central control. Okay. Take the G1 and G2 wiring back off, you're good. Now that machine's not going to care what the address numbers are. So then a year from now, they decide they want central control. All you got to do is come back and put in the wiring, G1 and G2, daisy chain it through, run from that last leg into the central control, hook power up central control, and suck all those addresses in, and it's easy peasy at that point. That extra 10 minutes you spent when you set those 6 condensers is going to make your life really easy if you ever do decide to add central control to it. So that's what I'm talking about here. This only applies if there's more than one outdoor unit being centrally controlled. Do not power the indoor units and the outdoor units until you set the dip switches, and you have G1 and G2 wired daisy chain across the outdoor units. Like I said, we'll talk about this a little bit more when I get to central control. All right, pre-startup, power all the indoor units on. All should display AO on the unit and or wired controller. Remember, some of these units, if you got a ducted unit, you don't have a display to look at. So you're dependent on looking at the wired controller for any error codes, whether it be an error code or it be a informational status code. AO is a status code. Any units displaying CO have a communication error. You need to figure out why you got a communication error. If all units display CO, check the outdoor unit at D1 and D2 to ensure it isn't connected to G1 and G2, because that could give you the error code. Also check that the first indoor unit, the D1 and D2, make sure we didn't get the wiring crossed up to H1 and H2. Some of you guys are probably thinking, why would you do that? You know, if you know, but trust me, I've had that phone call. So just double check your wiring. Once it's all corrected, the error code should clear automatically. You need to go through the indoor units, walk through, make sure all of them say AO before you start that unit up. Because if you start that unit up and you have one of the units that's in CO, it can't address properly. It's never even going to pick that unit up. So instead of you having 4 indoor units, you're only going to have 3. That's a problem. Okay. With that said, things are going a little slower than anticipated, which is fine. We get back, I've got a short little video about startup for you guys. We'll play that, and then we got a little bit more on the PowerPoint, and then we'll move to the outdoor lab and start playing around with some of that stuff. So we will be back in 30 minutes, and we'll continue on. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you all got a chance to grab a bite to eat and use the facilities or whatever you needed to do. Catch up on emails, whatever. Anyway, so jumping back into this, we're going to start with answering some of your questions, and then we'll move into, I've got a short little video about the commissioning process, so you're going to hear from James McIntyre. James does a great job of explaining how to put that thing through the commissioning process or debug process. And then we'll jump back, got a few more slides about MultiPRO and stuff like that. And then eventually we're going to make our way out to the lab where we can try to run some of the tests and stuff on that machine out there, use the portable service tool, run the unit and get into some of those function codes I was talking about as far as vacuum mode, refrigerant recovery mode, stuff like that. So with that, let's, Daniel, what kind of questions we got there?
Yeah, we got a few in here, Greg. One from Orlando asking about NATE certification for the webinar. That is unfortunately not available. None of our live broadcasts are NATE certified.
Right.
Let's see. Don was asking about the communication wire being shielded. I think we already answered that pretty well.
Yeah, again, I'll just comment on it too. So, yes, they're not, it's not required to use grounded shielded cable, but it does need to be 18-2 stranded wire.
Right.
Don't use solid core wire.
Right. It can't just be thermostat wire.
But in my own experience, I would tell you, you're better off to use grounded cable, grounded shielded cable. It just minimizes problems.
Gotcha.
So,
good to know. Arif says, what's the maximum length for the communication wire?
there is an actual maximum length. I don't know it off the top of my head. I believe it's listed in the installation, or not, the service manual. Also, I believe it's selection software. It's been a while. So when you look at the final report, I think it actually tells you what your maximum could be.
Gotcha.
Anyway, it's documented in a few different places, but I don't know. It's a pretty long run. So.
All right. And Don asked, what's the reason for the 10-foot minimum line set?
So I'll answer the question about 10-foot minimum mindset. I also have another comment about the length of wire. So in the commercial VRF systems, okay, I can tell you that uses the same 18-2 wire, Grease commercial VRF units, and I've been on job sites where the condensing units are on the roof of a 13-story building. You got a comm wire that runs all the way down to that first floor and daisy chains across all of those indoor units on that first floor. So that's a heck of a long run.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can't imagine you're going to be exhausting that with
you're not-
MultiPRO.
Probably not going to run into a
So just to
situation.
kind of give you a vision of, okay, we can make some pretty decent runs with 18-2 communication wire. What you don't want to do is have splices and you don't tee off. What I mean is it has to stay a daisy chain pattern. One unit, next unit, next unit, next unit, okay? You can't go to like a junction box and spider off of that. That does not work. CAN bus don't work that way. So, all right, now the 10-foot minimum line set. So across the product line of Grease units, mini splits, multi-zone mini splits, single zone mini splits,
The flex.
the flex, all of those have a 10-foot minimum. MultiPRO is really no different. You need to have some piping between that condenser and those Y branches or header. So you, in layman's terms, give the refrigerant some time to stabilize itself leaving that condenser before we actually hit a header or a Y branch. So it's good practice. Back to best practices. So.
Makes good sense. All right, Dennis says, does the LCAC selector software auto update? No.
No. So if you have the older version that doesn't have the new version ultras on it, you will need to go to our website and download the new software.
Uninstall the old version, install the new
Correct.
version. Okay. Waylon says, is a long bend in soft copper considered an elbow?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're using, and I don't know if you guys, I don't know how many of you were on our broadcast from yesterday with the R32 flex unit. All of those bends were done with a ratchet tubing bender.
But they're all considered.
But when you use that ratchet bender and make a 90-degree bend, that's
It's
no
an
different
elbow.
than a 90-degree elbow. But I would say your flow through a bent elbow that's not kinked is going to be better, through using a ratchet bender, your flow is going to be better than using a long radius brazed in 90.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that as many of those bends that you can do with a quality bender and make using a ratchet bender and making a real nice bend with it, that's what you want to do versus using elbows. Plus it minimizes your solder joints and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right, and we got two more here. Reef says, is it actual pipe length or equivalent pipe length
It's equivalent pipe
that
length.
you put in the program? Equivalent?
I would do equivalent
Okay.
pipe length.
And then Tyler says, I think you already covered this really well, but he was just making a comment on, is it all solder connections? Well, not really, because
Is it all what? I'm sorry.
solder, braze connections.
Oh,
So the outdoor unit has flares on it. The indoor units have flares on them. It's just the piping in between that's going to be brazed. And you did a good job covering that with flow and nitrogen. And
well, the other thing I'll tell you, I'm not against you using a press fit. And there's
Yeah.
all different kinds of brands of press fit. There's some that I've heard are better than the others. You've got to. That's where I would lean on your expertise, which is the best.
What works best for you.
Tool for you to use.
Yeah.
Fittings for you to use. We're not going to tell you can't use them, but obviously, if one of your fittings leak, that's not warranty from us,
Right,
right?
right.
So
Same goes with brazing. If you braze and don't use nitrogen, don't
no
flow
different.
nitrogen, that's not under warranty. That's an installation
But
problem.
what I will fair warn you about is whether you're using a Y branch or a header, these are meant to be brazed connections. So what you'd want to do is, and you can do this on a bench or something, flow some nitrogen through it and add stubs. Then, you know, give
Then
yourself,
you can use your press fit.
then you can use your
or
press fit from there.
whatever type you choose to
Yep.
use.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Little prep work, you can even do that at your shop before you even get out to the job. Same with the header, same thing. It's already swedged and ready to go for
be
a brazed
brazed,
connection. So
then-
you just add some stubs to it to give you a place to be able to do your crump fit.
Yeah. All right, excellent. That's all the questions that we had for now.
Awesome. All right, so we are going to play that short video with James on the startup, and we'll come back from that and roll through the rest of the slides, and then we'll head to the lab.
All right, now that your installation is complete, your MultiPRO system must go through a startup sequence, also known as debugging. I'd like to walk you through the step-by-step process to ensure proper operation of the MultiPRO system. So why do we have debugging? Among other things, this process helps the system determine how much refrigerant piping has been installed and ensures proper operation. Before beginning, double check that a pressure test has been. All right, now that your installation is complete, your MultiPRO system must go through a startup sequence, also known as debugging. I'd like to walk you through the step-by-step process to ensure proper operation of the MultiPRO system. So why do we have debugging? Among other things, this process helps the system determine how much refrigerant piping has been installed and ensures proper operation. Before beginning, double check that a pressure test has been performed, the system has been evacuated to below 500 microns, and that the additional refrigerant charge was weighed in. Also ensure that the service valves are open on the outdoor unit and that the power has been applied to the outdoor unit for the recommended 8 hours. If you have a C model as indicated by the model number ending in WLCTU, you'll perform the following steps. Access the control board of the outdoor unit by removing the top cover. There you'll find a 2-digit display and 4 buttons labeled SW1 through SW4. This display should read AO, as should all indoor units and wired controllers. Press and hold SW3 for 5 seconds. Once you let go, the display will change. This display will show the step and the status of each step. Do nothing until 04 is displayed. 04 will display, and then the number of indoor units the outdoor unit sees will be displayed. If this number matches, press and release SW3. If the number doesn't match, check all the displays on the indoor units or wired controllers to find out which one is not communicating. The problem unit will display C0, meaning a communication error, or the unit may not have a display. On the unit without displays, check power. 05, 06, and 07 are internal communications checks. You'll do nothing. 08 indicates whether or not the crankcase heater has been on for 8 hours. If it hasn't, the unit will display 08 and then UO. You should wait until the minimum time has elapsed. If the power was on for 8 hours, the display will move on automatically. When 10 and on is displayed, the fan or fans and compressor will start. The system is checking that the service valves are open. When the display reads 12 and then AP and you needed to add remaining charge to the system, ready your scale, gauges, and refrigerant cylinder. If ready, or if no additional charge was needed, press and release SW3. The system will now display either 15 and then AC, meaning it will now run in cooling mode, or 16 and then AH, meaning that it will run in heating. The system chooses heating or cooling automatically based on ambient temperatures. If the system is starting in heating and you need to weigh in additional refrigerant, you'll wait until the debugging process is stopped, run the system in cooling, and then weigh in using the suction line. The system will run for 45 minutes to an hour. On your C model, you may notice that some indoor units start before others. This is normal. Once debugging is complete, the system will shut down. Simply turn the indoor units on in the desired mode. Thanks for watching. At GREE, we're by your side.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed James's presentation there on the system startup. I decided to play that because James is really good. He's really concise and clear and goes through it really nicely in that video. So I think he actually speaks to it better than I do. So that's why I chose to do that. But with that, there's been a few changes. That video has been out for quite a while. So there's been a few changes as far as what he said in that video. So what he said in that video was you take the top of the unit off to get to the 4 buttons, which is true, except for on the new Ultra. You would take the front right panel cover off, as I showed you on that machine in the front of the unit. You got one board in there, a big vertical board. Those same 4 red buttons are on that board. So on the new Ultras, it's in a different location. The other thing is the 8-hour warm-up. So since that video was produced, we came up with some new rules. So if your debug stops at 08 UO that James talked about in that video, this means that the compressor has not had the 8-hour warm-up that's required. As you can see from my PowerPoint there, you can override it, but we want you to override it with rules, right? So that we don't end up with a damaged compressor. So if power's connected to that unit and it's above 50 degrees, you want to make sure you had at least an hour of warm-up time to the crankcase heater. If it's between 32 and 50 degrees, you want at least a 2-hour warm-up. 14 to 32 degrees, it's going to be 4-hour warm-up. And below 14 degrees, then you need the full 8-hour warm-up. So once it gets to that 08 UO, and it's stuck there, but we've met our rules over there, and you need to override it, then you just press SW3 one time, and it'll move on in that debug process, just like James talked about, take you to step number 9, and then 10, and so on. All right, so. And just keep in mind too, if it don't finish debugging, once it's in debug or doesn't let you get into debug, you're going to have an error code or something. You're going to have to figure out what that error code means and then be able to and correct that, then put it back through debug, and it should complete debug. One of the ones that I can tell you we've had quite a few phone calls on is the L9 error code. That goes back to that controller where I told you the wire controller control up to 16 indoor units. But you have to go into project settings and set that to the number of indoor units it's controlling. Again, some people think that that means number of indoor units on the system, and that's not what that means. And they would go in there and change that. Then they try to put it in debug, and they got one controller controlling one unit, but they set that for like 4. It's going to give you an L9 error code. I just know that one off the top of my head. So generally speaking, the error codes are really good about pointing you in the right direction of what you need to correct. Okay? So once you get that resolved, then you'll be able to move on in the debug process. So another thing about ducted units. So whether it's an air handler, a ducted unit, airflow is a big deal because now we're adding ductwork into it. All of the controllers come pre-wired and preset in the parameters. At a default of 5, you can set the static curve between 1 and 9. So the way you go about adjusting for the static pressure on the controller is you want to turn that fan on high speed, let the fan run, measure total static pressure drop across the air handler. If your total static pressure is 0.4 to 0.5, then that factory setting to 5 is perfect. If the total static pressure is below 0.3 or 0.3 and below, you're probably going to need to lower that. So you might try it at more like 3 or 4. And then if you, again, depending on how dramatic of a change you're going, if you're going from 5 all the way down to 1, you should see a pretty significant difference in your static pressure. If I go from 5 to 4, you're not going to see as much, right? But when you're lowering that curve, your static pressure should drop. Then let's say we get 0.6 or higher, remeasure the total static pressure, it should decrease. Because essentially what you're doing is you're setting the blower to a higher torque to overcome higher static. My caution to you that is if I'm measuring, let's say I measure on a unit and I get like a 0.8. So I take that from the default to 5 and I cram that thing all the way up to even, let's say, 9. Then I remeasure my total static and it hasn't come down any. You've got ductwork issues. You've got to go figure out whether you got too restrictive of a return, too restrictive of a supply. Because if you're cranking that controller all the way up to 9, you're giving that blower more thump. And with that more thump, static should come down. It's almost like if you went in there and put in a bigger blower. You didn't, you just turned up the torque on the blower. And the torque will overcome the static to a point. But if your ductwork is too restrictive, it won't. Or if you're doing it, and maybe you're doing it on a PM and you're checking the static. If the filter's clogged, it'll do the same thing, okay? So, but very important that we set that. You don't want to go in there and set, I've had some guys say, well, I'll just tell them to turn it up to 9. That's a bad idea. Because what happens is now you just gave that blower the full torque setting, and now it's not going to modulate because you don't have ductwork. What I mean by that is if you set it to 9, but your total static was only at like 0.4 or 0.5, you've given that blower that full torque setting. So now the way the MultiPRO air handler works is it's looking at the inlet and outlet temperature sensors on that coil. So when the fan's on auto, it'll adjust the blower speed. But if you crank that thing all the way up to the highest torque setting and you don't have any kind of high static, it's never going to modulate down. So if the blower's not modulating at all, that's the complaint. They put it on auto and it always runs at the same fan speed. It's because your controller's not set up right or you got too high static pressure drop across your air handler. Okay? All right, moving on. So after startup operation of the information, I always like to show this slide just because it kind of gives you these running parameters. UE is pressure equalization, UP is pump down, UC is cooling, unit heating, A4 is oil return, A3 is defrost. So make sure you explain to the customer which unit is the master, the main indoor unit. Remember, that's going to control your mode. Master unit determines mode of system, I just said that. All other indoor units will not be able to select the opposite mode. With wired controllers, this means that the opposite mode will not display. With handheld remotes, the opposite mode will cause the unit to sound a double beep indicating an invalid setting. I want you all to remember that one right there. If you're using a remote control and you're going to control that unit and you give it a signal and it goes beep, 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 it ain't accepting what you're telling it to do. If it goes beep, it just accepted what you told it to do. Okay? So that's a good one right there. That's a good one to remember. Indoor units already cooling or heating will switch modes based on the master setting. That goes back just to that loft unit I was telling you about. You've had it in heating season. You've got all of the downstairs units set at 74 degrees in heat. Everybody's happy. You got that loft unit that nobody's up there. You set it at 61 degrees. Then come spring, you got that warm day. You turn the master to cool, and then you go into the first floor and you reset all those to the temperature you want for cooling, and then you completely forget about that loft unit. Now that loft unit's sitting up there holding a 61 degree set point in cooling mode because nobody went up there and changed it. That's what we mean there. All right. Explain the light button feature of the remote. That's what turns the display on and off on a wall mount or a cassette. A lot of people are like, well, why would you do that? Well, what if that thing's in your bedroom? You may not like that thing glowing all night long. You may not like that night light. Explain upkeep. Filters should be washed with plain cold tap water when dirty. That's another biggie. Don't put chemicals on those filter screens that goes on those wall mounts or even on the cassettes. The chemical you put on there may very well eat the material. So just plain old water. Suggest a PM plan, explain blower operation. Blower runs constantly at set fan speed and cooling. Suggest auto blower speed. It uses about 10 kW or 10 watts of less power. Blowing arc starts and heating once the coil is warm. Should put on here too, this is just like any of the mini splits. In cooling mode, the fan does not shut off. It will slow down, it does not shut off. A lot of people look at that as a bad thing, and I think it's because it's more of what people are used to. In cooling mode, if you slow that blower down and keep it on, you keep constant air movement in the room and the space that it is cooling. So the advantage there is you constantly keep the air mixed and keep a more even temperature throughout the room. Okay? I will have people try to argue with me that that adds humidity back into the room. That is impossible. An air conditioner dehumidifies. There's no argument there, right? That's why you have to have a condensate drain. When that coil is cold, it is condensing the moisture in the air back into a liquid and flowing down the drain, right? The air conditioner cycles off. The coil is still wet. Okay, in order for you to throw that water back into the room, you have to atomize it. It ain't going to atomize because you don't have any heat to atomize it. You have to have vaporization, right? Well, the only way you're going to get vaporization is for you to boil it. So how are you possibly throwing the water that's on that coil back into the room? It's not adding humidity to the room. But let's say, some magical way, it did atomize that water and threw it back into the room. It did not add humidity back into the room. It simply put the humidity it had already taken out of the room and put it back in the room before it went down the drain.
Exactly. That's great. I like it.
It's impossible for it to make humidity.
Yep.
Okay?
Unless you got a big hole
care.
in the wall when it's raining.
I don't care if you're in Florida. I don't care if you're in Louisiana.
Or South Carolina.
The fan running all the time is not putting humidity back into the room. It's impossible. And I just explained to you why. And I could actually, if you want to get into the psychometrics of it all, and actually measure, you can do it with a psychometric chart, you can do it with a wet bulb thermometer, and you can actually measure the grains of moisture while the unit's running that's being removed from the air. And then you can do it after it cycles off and just the fan's running and see if you're actually putting any grains of moisture back in the air. And you can do it by just simply get on your computer, download a psychometric chart, get you a wet bulb thermometer, and record the data with the fan running, both in cooling and with just the fan on, and tell me how many grains of moisture you put back in that room. I guarantee you it was 0. Okay? So, I hope I debunked that theory. I had fun with that. Anyway, all right. But it does, like I said, it does keep the air stirred in the room so you maintain a more even temperature in the room. I get why we don't want the blower to come on in heat mode until the coil's warm and you start up so you're not blowing cold air all over the room. That makes sense. All right, controls. We talked about this. I'm going to skip it. We're going to move on. XK46, we already kind of went over this. I'm going to go over these quickly. This is the controller that comes with the cassettes. Not the cassettes, I'm sorry, the ducted units, except for the air handler. You can view some troubleshooting data, easy unit location. You can set up engineering parameters and provide all basic functions. This is factory 1-to-1. As I said before, it'll control up to 16 indoor units. That's a parameter code P14. Let's see. L9 air code, if you don't have that set right, I've already talked about that. To change it from Celsius to Fahrenheit, that's code P16. Blower static is P30. And the master indoor unit is P10. So if you want to change change this to make it the master, you would change that to P10, in P10. And this is all in the service manual for the controller, or owner's manual. So I'm not going to repeat all that. The XC70, I like these a little better, the XC7C and the XC70, because instead of it giving you P codes, it's going to literally tell you what you're changing. It'll say number of IDUs. Again, that's number of IDUs the unit's controlling, not number of IDUs on the system. But again, it gives you all the basic control functions, 7-day programmable, set user and engineer parameters, easy unit location, view troubleshooting data as well. Real easy to get into all that menu stuff. Again, it's factory set 1-to-1. If you're going to control more than one, you need to set it for that. It will not give you a P code, like I said, like the XK46. It'll just tell you what you're saying. So master controller. Basically, you're just going to select, do you want this to be the master controller or not? Now, let's say I've got 4 indoor units. And I walk up to this controller, and this is for the living room. And it's not the master indoor unit. That means one of the other indoor units has to be the master. Okay? The minute I tell this controller to be the master, I just stole it from the other unit. Okay? So then if I go back to the other unit, set it to the master, I just stole it from this unit. Because you can only have one master. Okay. Fahrenheit, again, all you do is select it, you want it to read it in Fahrenheit. It'll show on the controller, Fahrenheit or Celsius. Just select which one you want to do. That's why I like this. You don't have to have P codes. Here's the remote. I'm not going to sit there and go over all these functions. They're pretty much the same as any other Gree mini split. Just hit the highlight buttons, the light button, the temp button. If you press it once, its indoor room temperature will display the indoor room temperature for 4 seconds, reverts back. Some of them will actually show you the outdoor temperature on the MultiPRO system, and room temp and set point. Celsius to Fahrenheit, turn unit off, press down and mode simultaneously to switch it from Celsius to Fahrenheit. All of these remotes come factory set to Fahrenheit, so you shouldn't have to change it, but in case you do, that's how you do it. The timer function, the biggest thing that Daniel and I talk about this all the time. With that timer function, if it is set the timer function and somebody bumps the timer button, it's going to randomly shut off. So if the customer is not wanting to time the unit off at a certain time and leave it off till a certain time before it comes back on, make sure you go in there and set on and off to 0, 0, and 0, 0. That way, even if they bump the timer button, they're not turning it, shutting the unit off. I kind of talked about this in the quick reference guide. This is the 24-volt adapter. Again, you're going to use a standard heat-cool thermostat. You do need to set some of the parameter settings, like the fan setting, fan speed setting, the delay off. In other words, how long do you want that fan to run after you lose the call? Whether or not you want this particular 24-volt adapter can still be the master indoor unit. And then you can also set your fan static. So if you're using this on a air handler and you need to change the fan static curve from 1 to 9, that would be P30 on this. So refer to the instructions and it tells you how to get into each one of these codes. I don't remember what all the delays were and what your fan speed settings are off the top of my head. But I can tell you this. Let me go back one. I can tell you this. So when you're in auto mode, your fan speed setting, or not auto mode, sorry, let me take that back. So your fan speed setting of P02. Most of your thermostats anymore, there are some out there that have a G1, G2, G3. Okay, let's say your thermostat does not have a G1, G2, G3. You only have a G. So now you got to select when G energizes on this, what fan speed do I want that to run? Oop, let me go back. You choose it in P02. So you can set this to energize the fan speed in low, medium, or high. so that when G is energized, that's the speed it would run. If you would have a thermostat that has a G1, G2, and G3, then you can, it'll automatically set it up. So if you hit G1 call, that's low, G2 is medium, G3 is high. You can also manipulate this controller a little bit if you wanted to. Let's say I wanted 2-speed fan operation, okay? I can take and put G to here, and I can go back to P02 and set that to low, okay? Then I can take my Y connection, so when I get a call for cooling, when I get a call to Y, if I take a jumper from Y to G3, that means every time it was running in cooling mode, it would go to high speed. If I have just a fan call, it would run in low speed. Let's say, and I'll give you an example why you might want to do something like this, okay? If I was going to put a 24-volt adapter on my air handler at home, I would set G, you could set this to auto, so it auto ranges, okay? And I would give that G call for cooling, because you're going to get a G call in cooling, you also get a call to Y. So in cooling mode, it would run at auto fan speed, okay? Heat, I would take W here, and then I would take a jumper from there to G2 or G3. So that when I get that heat call, instead of the fan running in auto, it would force that fan to run at medium or high. The reason I would do that is because my registers on my home are on a vaulted ceiling. We all know heat rises. So what I want to do is get that heat pushed down off of that ceiling, so I need a higher fan speed in heating mode than I do in cooling. Cold air falls. So I'm good with it being auto and cooling. I don't care if it runs on low because that cold air will fall. But in heating, I need to get that thump off that register and get that heat to blow down off that vaulted ceiling. So then I would either jump between W to medium speed or high speed. Okay, now I'm just using a gray wire controller. I'm not using a 24-volt adapter right now. But if I was, I can tell you right now, I'd be jumping from W to G2. And the reason why that is because I run the fan on medium speed right now on the gray controller, and it heats very well. So I can't, it depends on the application. How high is your vault? How high are them registers? How far do I need to throw the heat down, right? And I found on medium speed it works great. So you know, like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. That's why I brought that up, just to kind of give you another avenue. Now, some people say, well, okay, you take and put a 24-volt adapter on there using whatever thermostat. You're not communicating with the thermostat anymore. What do I lose in efficiency? It's minimal. The only thing you're really losing is set point. So if you're setting your thermostat at 70 degrees and cooling, there's no way for the machine to know you set it for 70 degrees. And it can still see the ambient because you got a return air sensor, right? It just doesn't know how far away from set point you are. If it's 80 degrees in the room, you got it set at 70. That outdoor unit don't know that. With a Gree controller, it does. So is performance sacrificed? Yes, but it's minimal. All right, the sensor controller, we have two different ones. We have the CE54-24, which gives you 30, you can go up to 32 indoor units. We have the CE52-24, which will do 255 indoor units. This is probably geared more towards commercial than it would be the MultiPRO. This would be probably better for most MultiPRO applications. Connects to the outdoor G1 and G2. And then you got all your scheduling functions and everything you can do. You can do group control, you can turn all the machines off, you can turn all the machines on, You can go in there and set your schedules on each indoor unit. You can do everything you could do from a 7-day programmable controller, you can do from the central controller. All right. So this is how it works in the wiring, just to kind of give you a general idea. So you would daisy chain, depending on how many units you have, you can do up to 16 outdoor units. Remember, depending on which one, you can only either do 32 or 255 indoor units, depends on which central controller you're using. You daisy chain your wiring just like you would with the D1 and D2s. You daisy chain between the outdoor units. You have to make sure you set your dip switches, as I talked about earlier. You don't have to have this wire daisy chain going into your controller yet when you set your dip switches and you commission the units. You can do that at a later date. This is what I was talking about. Whether you plan on adding central control or not, go ahead and put that daisy chain in there between the G1 and G2s of all your outdoor units, and then go set your dip switches so you have system 1 outside, system 2, system 3, system 4, system 5, so that when you do the startup on all those, it'll address those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like that. Now you're ready to go for whenever you want to add central control into it. So it's super easy. Again, you don't have to leave this permanent wire. You drop this on the ground and just daisy chain them together and set your dip switches. It is going to be the SA2 dip switches, and this is how you would set them up. So notice they don't give you a number 1 over here. They only give you 2 through, because 1, all of these are going to be on, and then number 2, you're going to turn dip 1 off. Number 3, you're going to turn dip 2 off, and so on. You don't need to memorize any of this. It is in the central control instructions. This same setup though, let's say you're going to do cool automation. Cool automation uses the same protocol. So you would set up the dip switches and the daisy chain wiring and your unit addresses exactly like you would on central control. Would be the same for cool automation. So it makes it simple. Portable service tool, we're going to show this out there. This you can view data on 59 indoor units, motor target speeds, current, high and low pressure sensor readings, all temperature sensor readings, EEV pulses, connect to outdoor unit or indoor unit. And I'm going to show you how you can do that too. You can do a project number reset. That's actually kind of cool. So let me take you back one. Let's say I didn't do this, and I've got that whole system all set up. So I can tag into the G1 and G2 with this and do a project number reset. All right. All right, let's see. This is where I've showed this slide before, in case you got anybody new. There is on the MultiPRO Ultra B revision, it's the only machine I know of, it does not have the Molex plug that this will plug into the board on the outdoor unit. So you can manipulate this. All we really need is this red and black. I don't care how you do your connections, but you figure it out. You take that red and black wire, you hook it to D1 and D2. Orange and brown is power. You won't need those because you're going to use a portable battery power supply or just a AC adapter and plug in that micro USB. That'll power this controller up. And as long as this black and red wire are seeing D1 and D2, you can communicate with the whole system. Doesn't matter where. You can go hook it up to D1 and D2 on the outdoor unit or any one of the indoor units and see the entire system. All right, a little bit about troubleshooting. So I got the most common codes. This is what codes we get calls on. AO just means the unit's ready for debug. It's a status code. CO, communication malfunction. Usually it's a minor wiring issue for the most part, usually. L9, wire controller set to control the wrong number of indoor units. I've mentioned that multiple times. L8, insufficient power supply, meaning we got 120 volts to it. That's a good one. E3, low pressure protection. It's out of gas. You got a leak. Status codes, AO, unit ready for debug, UH, heating, UC, cooling, A3, defrosting, A4, oil return, UE, pressure equalization, DB, debugging of the unit. So when you got this thing in debug, if you go inside and walk around the indoor units, they're going to say DB. There's nothing wrong, it's just running in debug. Make sure you share these with the homeowner. Because otherwise they're going to look at that wall mount and go, uh-oh, what's wrong with my unit? It's giving me an A3 air code. When it was just wintertime and it was running defrost. Another little reference I have down here is make sure you're referring to the proper manual, because for the most part, GREE's really good about not duplicating air codes for different meetings, but it does happen at times. L3 is water overflow protection on MultiPRO. On a mini split, it is an outdoor fan air. So keep that in mind. Then this is the malfunction list you'll see for wired controllers. Here's your L3 water overflow protection. L5 freeze protection could easily be done just from dirty filter. No main indoor unit. I actually had that code once. It's because I hooked up a 24-volt adapter and I didn't set it to become the master. And the one that I disconnected, the master wired controller and master indoor unit controller, I disconnected that controller, hooked up a 24-volt adapter. I had no main indoor unit. So then I went back into the P codes for the 24-volt adapter, set it to become the master, air code went away, I was up and running. Okay? So it can happen. Insufficient power supply, alarming due to bad air quality. There's just a bunch of different ones. Most of these I've never seen. CO I do get. CO, L3, L8. Some of those are the most common ones. Just kind of going over some of the other codes. Just trying to kind of show you. AO is a status code. A2 is a function code. So just because the air code is listed doesn't mean it's an air code. It could be a status code. It could be a function code. So A2 is pump down. A3 is defrosting, it's just static. AB, energy stop of operation, emergency stop of operation, sorry. Another status code, AC for cooling. AF for fan, just kind of give you an idea what some of these codes can look like. Malfunction of subcooler liquid outlet temperature sensor. It even tells you, so this is something I've been working on, is updating the new Ultra manual. And this is where this came from, it's from our own spreadsheets. So when we get done with this, give me time to finish it. When you open up the air code list, it's going to give you all the air codes displayed just like this. It's not only going to tell you what the air code is, it's going to tell you on the diagram which thermistor they're talking about, what plug it is on the board. And then it's going to tell you more about it. So we're going to give you a full description and recommended action for each air code. This is on the standard. If you open up the manual on the standard, it's a little different the way they give you the air codes. You just got to follow the arrows through. So if I had a B1 air code, it would be B1. Malfunction of outdoor ambient temperature sensor. All right, so function settings. These are the ones that I'm going to show you out there in the lab. We're kind of mess around with them. So A2 is refrigerant recycle, so we can pump all the refrigerant from the outdoor unit, or from the indoor units back into the outdoor unit. This A6, I don't know if on the standard if that's even a functional code. I'm not going to show you how to do that because there's really no point in doing it. Basically what it does is you can make the unit be a cooling only or a heating only unit. No point in us changing that. It's just, from where I stole this out of the manual, it was there. So A7 is outdoor silence mode. So if you got a customer who's complaining that the unit's really noisy, you might adjust that. Be careful though, because how are we getting it in silence mode? We're reducing the hertz of the machine. So you're going to have capacity loss in doing that. A8 is vacuum mode. Y-Gree calls it after sales vacuum mode. I don't know. What that means to me is, what I'd rather this say is, after the service valves have been open, vacuum mode, right? Because you're pulling vacuum on the entire system including the outdoor unit. You have to put it in A8 mode. Otherwise, you're not going to open up the solenoids and EEVs in the outdoor unit. You will never completely evacuate that system properly. N0 is auto energy savings. N3 is forced defrosting, so you can force it into defrost. You can also do that from the wired controller. Forced energy savings. Some of these I wouldn't recommend you change unless you talk to us first. Indoor unit engineering serial number offset. That is the same as resetting the addresses. Unit address reset or project number reset. That's what I was looking for. It's the same thing. And then fan emergency setting. This is not going to apply to MultiPRO. Well, yeah, I think it can. I'm sorry. Basically, you got 2 outdoor fans. If one of them's broke, you can set this to fan emergency setting. That will allow the unit to run off of 1 fan temporarily. And this tells you how to get into them. We're going to do that out there in the lab. Capacity dip switch says must be set when you place the main board on the outdoor unit. So, and I don't have a picture over here, but what I'll tell you is these capacity dip switches are SA1. From the factory, they come covered with glue. So if you got to replace that board, what you need to do is take the glue off and make sure those capacity dip switches match on the new board to what the old board was, so they're set right. And then if you're going to be changing the board and you're going to have a central controller on there too, let's say it did, make sure you set those dip switches the same as the old board as well. Then also jumper caps. Be very careful. On the new Ultra, it has 2 of them. There's a blue one and there's a whitish grayish one. You have to move both of these to the new board. So this is something else, a slide I put together because it kind of brings it all together into one slide, and I think it just saves a lot of time. All right? So we will always tell you in every one of our trainings down here, you don't need to know the specific winding ratings. But if you have a high quality meter and you get a high quality connection at the compressor, the actual resistance value of the windings on the Ultra is 0.197 ohms, plus or minus 7%. The reason why I say high quality meter and high quality connections, because remember, you're doing an ohm reading with probably a 9-volt battery. So if you don't have a really good connection and a strong battery, it's going to throw off that ohm reading. I don't care. What I'm really after is, do we have equal resistance across the windings, no matter how I do it, whether I go U to V, V to W, WU, doesn't matter. Let's say I get 2, 2, and 2. That compressor windings are good. We will generally tell you for field purposes, somewhere between 0.5 and 2 ohms is generally what you'll read. But this was in the manual, so I left it in there. Ultra, on the fan motor testing, for the 3-wire fan motors, again, you're just going to ohm it out for equal resistance across the windings, but the actual resistance on these motors is 37.4 ohms. That really doesn't change from one to the other. Again, you don't need to know this specific amount. We just got to realize that this is going to be a higher ohm reading than what you would get on the compressor. You should have equal resistance across the windings, no matter how you go across those wires. And also, if you go from each wire to ground, you should have no reading. Same with the compressor to make sure you don't have a grounded compressor. EEV testing. This is the best diagram of an EEV I've ever seen. I really like it because it's showing you that where the actual windings are. So if I measure from orange to gray, then I would get 46 ohms. If I measure from gray to yellow, I'm going to get 46 ohms. If I measure from gray to red, because here's gray coming down here, gray to red, 46 ohms. Gray to black, 46 ohms. Okay? What if I went from orange to yellow? Dan, you got better math than me. What's 46 times 2?
Don't ask me that. 92?
Yeah, that's right. Because 50 times 2 minus 8.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. It'd be around 92 ohms, okay? And we've talked about this in other trainings that we've done as far as ohming one out. Well,
Yes,
what if
we
you
have.
don't know the windings? What if you don't know where the windings are at? What color wires or what? You don't have to. You can start on one end of that plug. Let's say we've got a Molex plug and it's orange, gray, yellow, red, black. I can take my own probe, start on the orange wire, and daisy chain. I should either read, like here I would read 46, here I'd read 92, right? Here I would read 96, and here I would read, is that 96 still?
46 or 92?
Orange, so you're going to go here. Messing me up because I'm thinking about it. Orange to black. It's still going to come back to 92 because it's going to bleed through here, and you're going to pick up this winding and this winding. And that's what we've always said. If you start from one end of the plug to the other, you're going to either read 46-ish
or 92.
ohms or 90. We said 96.
Yeah.
92, whatever. It's close enough, right? So I leave my probe on orange. I go to gray, yellow, red, black. If I get a reading of around 46 or around 96, I'm good. Move my probe to gray. Daisy chain through again, 46 to 96 or 92. Yellow, daisy chain through. And you just keep on. As long as you go through each wire on that whole plug, go through and everything comes back around 46 or 96, right around in those ohm readings, that solenoid coil is good. The other reading you want to do, and Daniel can attest to this too, is from each wire to ground. You should not get a reading. If you get a reading, you could have a corroded armature. Mm-hmm. So if you pop that EV head off and look in the EV body, it'll be all rusty, and then the top of the power head will be all rusty. And a lot of times you can just clean that up with some emery cloth, clean the coil with some emery cloth, put the thing back on, your ground went away. And the solenoid's actually still good. So, another little tidbit there. And then also the Ultra, we actually have the actual solenoid values too. So that pretty much covers all the electrical testing on this unit in one slide. That's why I did that. All right, talking about this is pretty cool. So Gree actually shared with me a really nice piping diagram of the MultiPRO Ultra. Haven't dug through the standards as well, but this is more piping involved, a little tougher to understand than a standard anyway. So I thought it was really cool, so I thought I'd share it. And what I did was kind of highlighted it. And I took their little circle out, put the reversing valve in here, cleaned this up, made it look really easy so you can follow the refrigerant flow. Okay? So from the compressor, we discharge off the compressor. We go through the oil separator. This is right off the discharge line, so we're already collecting oil and putting it back into the compressor. You're not going to collect it all, but you'll collect some of it. Discharge gas goes through my reversing valve to my outdoor coil. We condense back into a liquid. We go through the filter. We pass through this EEV. We go through the IPM module. That's the board. That's that liquid loop that cools the board. We go through the subcooler to our liquid valve. Depending on what the machine is reading, it may actually be metering some refrigerant through this other EEV to subcool that liquid refrigerant during cooling mode. Okay? So that's basically the cooling cycle. As you can see here, We're stopping here. This ain't doing anything in cooling mode. That EEVI is not open. From best what I can understand of this piping diagram. Now, go into heating mode. We discharge off the compressor. We go through our reversing valve, go through discharge, off through a reversing valve, discharge to our indoor units, come back as a liquid. We come back, we go through the subcooler, IPM module, EV for heating. Now we're actually going to meter the refrigerant, get our suction gas through the reversing valve, back, and I forgot the rest of my blue lines, sorry, but this should come around like this into the compressor, right? Okay, now, if I go into low ambient heating, it probably will subcool some of the refrigerant coming through here. That refrigerant is going to come around, it's going to go here, and we're going to meter it again back into here, and that's all the functionality to low ambient heating. So that's kind of how it works. And the other thing it's going to do, low temperature oil return solenoid valve, it's going to be opening this up to force more oil back into the compressor in low ambient heating. So I thought it was a pretty good diagram to show, to kind of give you a gist of how the refrigerant flow works within the MultiPRO Ultra unit. All right, that's it. Cool. Now what we'll do, let's take about a 10-minute break. That'll give us time for us to go to the warehouse, get the laptop set back up. I'll get back in my PowerPoint to those end functions and stuff, and we'll go through some of the stuff out in the lab. Daniel's also got answers to questions that came up earlier in the broadcast about being able to set the heating below 61 degrees.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So rather than just answer the question, we thought we'd show you on the controller.
Yeah.
Daniel, before we go to our break, was there more questions?
We did have one from Nancy that says, does at least one indoor unit have to have a GREE controller when using the 24-volt adapter?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. All right, and that's all the questions we got for right now. Don't forget, you got the question button there to the side, to the right-hand side of the screen. Please ask any questions you have. The only bad question is one not asked.
That's right. All right, so let's go to break. 10 minutes, we'll see you in the warehouse.
See you in a bit.
All right, we're back. All right, so we were going to answer that question.
Yeah.
About how to set it
below 61 degrees
below
in
61
heat mode.
degrees, which is basically like a vacation mode or
freeze guard.
a freeze guard mode.
We steer away from the term freeze guard because that indicates it's going to keep something from freezing, like your water pipes.
Well, if you keep it at least 46 degrees, it ought to.
Well, ought to and does.
I get it.
You know.
Because their water pipes weren't actually in the room. That
Exactly.
Was 46 degrees.
Yeah. They were in the attic.
They were in the, yeah, they were in the attic.
So, all right. So on this controller, we've already got it set to heat mode. It does need to be in heat mode to do this function.
So make sure you tell. So that is the XC70 controller.
Okay.
And I can tell you guys this: all of the settings with this controller are almost identical on the XC7C.
Okay.
The only big difference is the menu button. So if you look at that controller right where Daniel's got his fingers, it's 3 dotted lines. That is the menu button. On the XC7C, it says menu.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And this is also your OK button too. So you hit the button, I'll start from the beginning. You hit the menu button, go to function, it's already highlighted. And then you want to scroll down till you select absence. And then you hit the menu button again, it selects it, and then you simply back out. Now, the indoor temp right now is 73. My set temp now shows 46 for heat mode. Now
awesome. So while you got the controller up there, just to kind of give them some more information too, real quick. Go back to that menu,
Yeah.
and you'll see
Step back a little.
you'll see the different menus. So you've got, what is that?
Function, schedule, view, and set.
Okay, so set is where we want to go, and you can go right or left with the arrow keys, and you're going to go to project set. Okay, and then there is where you to make your different selections. Like that says master. Does it say
wired
master
controller,
indoor unit?
Master indoor unit. So
Okay.
this is set to the master.
That's set to the master. So if it wasn't, you could select that as the master. Whichever unit was the master, it would change it. Go ahead and use an arrow key or something, otherwise we're going to get bounced out. So just keep going down. It'll take you into the next page. What page you're on now?
2.
Okay, so you're on page 2. So it, like in there, one of those is going to be number of IDUs.
There it is right there.
Okay,
and
there
we've
you
got
go.
1 because we're only controlling 1 indoor with this controller.
Cool. So that's where I was talking about. If you're going to control more than one, you got to set it to more than one. It's okay. Just hold menu again. Go back into project set. And scroll down. Now, when you guys get into this, if you just keep hitting the up and down keys, you won't really lose the page, but it keeps you from getting kicked out. So, but you can go through some more of those. But all the different, so a lot of those you won't set, but just refer to the manual. It should answer most of your questions. Again, you can always call us in tech support if you're not sure want one of the settings or something. The XD7C does exactly the same thing. Keep going. Okay, so now you get into where it's hidden from the homeowner. So you've got to do a passcode, so it's going to be all 0. So you go up, right. Nope. Yep, it's up, right, because up is 0, right moves you to the next line, up, 0, and then you hit enter, and then that takes you into the settings that the homeowner can't see. These are settings we really don't want them messing with. But again, it's in the manual. It tells you, what all those settings are. Most of them you won't have to adjust, and some of them I wouldn't recommend you adjust. For the most part, it's pretty well set up, is what I'm going to tell you. But keep going. I think it takes you. I'm sorry. I think it takes you to where it says display indoor temp. I think it's the last page.
You're still in the way.
Sorry.
Oh, there it was. Type displayed on home page, indoor temp.
There you go.
So you can change display and set point as default or display and indoor temperature as
Right.
default.
So if you want the room temperature displayed, you got to go to that part of that controller. The XE7C is exactly the same way. All of those parameter settings are the same thing. Okay, so if you want to display the indoor temperature, you've got to go into the contractor settings, past
which
the
requires
passcode,
the passcode.
all the
and
way
then
to the
go
last
all the way
page.
to the
I think
last
it's page
one.
9.
Yeah, this is 12 of 13.
Oh, okay.
So that's 13. So that
So it's
would-
12 of 13.
Yeah,
Okay.
12 of 13.
Right.
And this right here, don't do that.
What is it?
Alter password.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
do that.
Yeah, leave it at the factory. 'cause
Leave
that
it
way
the
you don't
factory
forget
one.
it.
That way, in case you lose your notes or whatever, you'll be able to get back into it.
Again, if you got any questions about those parameter settings, there's so many of them to go through. Most of them, for the most part, other than the one we just showed you, and the number of indoor units, most of the, and master, whether you want the unit to be master or not, and then that very first page on the project settings as far as like whether you want it to be the master indoor unit. The one that where it said master controller, the only time you need to set that is because you can use more than one controller on a MultiPRO system. So you could have two controllers controlling one indoor unit, But one of them has to be master, one of them has to be slave. They can't both
Okay.
be masters.
Gotcha.
So that's where that setting comes in.
Gotcha.
Master indoor unit means it's the master on the system.
This unit is
Master controller means that is the master of more than one or more controllers controlling the same indoor unit.
okay. Gotcha.
So you just gotta, if you just kind of think it out, what are they trying to tell me here? You can kind of understand what the setting really is. Okay. The XC7C, the new one that's coming, we've simplified that even more and made the settings that you're more likely to set at the very beginning and the ones that you are less likely to set at the very end.
That's a good idea.
And then also, because the other thing I want to share with everybody is when it comes to MultiPRO, these same controls are used in commercial VRF. So a lot of those settings in there don't really apply to a small MultiPRO system.
Yeah,
you don't
smaller
need that,
system.
right?
Gotcha.
So, but like I said,
That makes sense.
if you got any questions about that, feel free to reach out to our tech support. We're more than happy to answer them. I've got screenshots saved for all these controllers. We've got it in our quick lookup guide through our phone system to be able to grab those instructions quickly.
And easily see
And we
them.
can easily grab you a screenshot, send it to you. So it makes it really, it's almost like as if we got on the controller with you.
Right.
Okay? So it's not a big deal. All right. So with that, let's move on into some of those function codes and see if we can't set them up. The first one I want to do is the refrigerant recovery, or refrigerant recycle, which is A2. And Daniel, I can't read that far away.
All right.
Help me out here.
So A2 is refrigerant cycle.
And I want to make sure the camera is pointing at the board. Make sure we're on board with that. We good? Okay. So as you can see the board here, you got your 4 buttons here. We got SW1, SW2, SW3, and SW4. And I can't read it. I thought I was going to need my glasses. Anyway, so what do I got to do, Daniel,
All right. So
to get me into
to get you into it, so step 1, power on the entire system. Step 2, press and hold the SW1 up button on the unit for over 5 seconds.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A7.
Yep. And then step 3 is press S1 or SW2 to scroll through the function codes.
Okay. And I want to get to A2, right?
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's refrigerant recycle.
Let's see if this will take me the other way. I gotta find it. There it is. Up, passed it up. There it is. Now what would I do?
Now press SW3 to confirm the function setting, set accordingly, and press SW3 to confirm the setting.
I think I messed it up. Let's try it again.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I got back to it. All right, so once I get A2, then what do I do?
SW3 is confirmed, so just press it.
Okay. And then what?
And it doesn't say anything else.
Let's see if it goes. It come up 01. Should start up the machine.
says A2 on the controller there. Oh, you turned it off.
Okay, I'm gonna go back into it because it was being goofy.
Okay.
So it's SW1, right?
Mm-hmm.
For 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Now hit, 2 or 3 to scroll through.
I don't think it confirmed it for some reason. Oh,
Oh.
back.
There it
There
goes.
we go. Confirm.
There you go.
So it did do it.
Yep.
Now, just so you know, once you put it into A2,
Mm-hmm.
you do still have to close the liquid line service valve,
Of course.
and then it'll pump all the refrigerant
And then
back.
make
So-
sure your gauges are on so you can see when it gets to 0,
Right.
and then you can shut it down.
All right. Now I think what I'd like to see but it's not saying A2 on the controller. I think I mean it's running in cool mode. I might have goofed that up.
Huh.
So it's running in cool mode. SW3 to confirm. So it's going to finish out whatever cycle it's in. Because that made sense. The controller said A2. I think it's just in cool mode right now. Go to the other controller. What's that? Is this still? That's in cool mode?
Yep.
Okay. Turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I goofed it up. Which is fine. So we're going to cycle it off. We'll do it one more time.
You want to turn that one off?
Don't turn it off.
Just run it
Leave
up.
it on cool, but turn it way up.
Okay.
I'm going to turn this one way up too because it's coming back on. You don't want it to cycle down. So one thing about GRE units, it'll teach you a whole lot of patience. And you got to,
Waiting for it to cycle on or cycle off.
yep.
You got to remember there's time delays and it goes through a shutdown period. I like the way you have that laid out there on the slide where it says what the button number kind of really does. So your SW1 is up, your SW2 is down, your SW3 is confirm, and your SW4 is back.
Right.
So that makes sense.
And just so you know, so the audience knows, the Ultra is exactly the same.
Okay.
The new Ultra.
Okay.
The previous version of the B Revision Ultra, I think it has 6 buttons. It's not the same as this.
Set up
So-
differently.
It's set up differently. You still get to the same function codes.
Yeah.
It's just you got to get to them a little differently.
Gotcha.
Different button pushes. thing's turned up enough, it should be shutting off for us. It's one thing I've noticed about, even on my system at home, these things do a great job of staying on.
At a lower hertz.
That's what you want.
Yes.
Because that's
That's
where
what
the
saves you.
efficiency
That's
comes
what
from.
saves you your energy.
What I'm saying is, without overcooling,
Yeah.
they might overshoot a little, but without dramatically overcooling, the machine it works really hard at not shutting all the
Yeah.
way off
Yeah.
until it's just reached a point where, okay, everything's more than satisfied, we got to shut down.
Right.
And for energy savings reasons, that's huge.
The longer you can run at a lower frequency is going to save you a lot of
Yep.
energy.
Man, that thing is taking a hot minute. How high would you go on the controller?
86.
Yeah, I was 85. It should be shutting down. Hit SW4 if you're going to hit anything. We might have confused this thing.
We may have.
Just for the sake of saving some time here, we're going to power it down. Power it back up. Let the indoors cycle completely off. Fans and all. Still waiting on the fans to. Okay, now we should be good. Let's do vacuum mode real quick. So it's SW1 for 5 seconds. Getting into all of them is the same. SW1 for 5 seconds. Let go. And then you can use SW1 or SW2 to cycle through. I believe it was A8, wasn't it?
Yes.
A8, then you hit SW3 to confirm. So that absolutely just worked because I heard it click. So what
Yep.
it's doing now is it's opening up the EVs and everything.
Indoor, outdoor, all of them.
And I believe, and do I have the exit in there? How to exit out?
No.
Guess I need to add that, don't I? It's SW4. You hit
Which is
SW4 one time,
The back key.
or one time,
The back key, which takes you out.
it took me out. So now let's go back into refrigerant recycle mode. So SW1 for 5 seconds. Brings me into A7. We're going to go to A2, right?
Yes.
Oop, went too far. Okay. SW3 to confirm. It's flashing 01. I want to see if the controllers go to A2 like they did a minute ago. There,
Nah,
I had to
there it
hit
is.
confirm twice.
You had to hit SW3 twice.
Yep.
Yep.
Now the controllers show A2. So if you give it a minute, it should start the compressor up and run and be ready to run in recycle mode. Good part is just pushing them buttons and stuff, you're not gonna
hurt
You're not going to
anything.
hurt it. So, what else did we have there? Forced defrosting, I can already tell you right now, won't work because it's too warm out
Yeah,
here.
it's too warm.
It's not going to go in the defrost. Even if it does, it's going to go right back out. I do want to try the N5. See if it'll reset addresses. And then, there it goes. So it worked. Again, you would have to close the liquid line service valve at this point,
To get it to pump
let it go
down.
into its pump down, and then you close the suction service valve. Then at that point, what I would do is I would hit the SW4.
And back out of that.
I'm going to let the compressor come on. Or
Close your
let it run
suction
it.
valve, hit the
SW4, let it back,
back out.
Don't kill the power.
Don't cut the power off.
The reason why I say don't cut the power off is so that you keep the crankcase heater energized.
Mm-hmm.
All the refrigerants in this outdoor unit. Go in and do whatever service repair you got to do, the indoor unit, whatever reason you were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of your business in there. Your service valves are closed. Now you can come back out. You got your gauges hooked up. You can put on some valve core removal tools. You can pull a
Vacuum out the
vacuum
indoors.
from both ports, vacuum all your indoor units. But, yeah, and you don't have to put it in vacuum mode for that because it'd be just like a new install at that point.
You're
pulling
vacuuming
from both sides. You're fine.
Yeah.
The only time you got to go to vacuum mode is when you're pulling the outdoor unit into a vacuum.
Right.
Then you got to go into A8 because that's what opens up your solenoids and EEVs. Okay. So I'm talking it out loud so that the audience hears why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So then, by pressing SW4, we still got it powered. We do whatever we got to do. We do our vacuum. We pull it down to 500 microns. We can go ahead and put our valve cores back in.
Release
and
the
then
charge.
We can release the charge back up,
And you're ready.
and then we can fire the unit back up.
Yep.
Meanwhile, you want your indoor controls. If you back out, you need your indoor controls, the mode off. Don't power them off, but the mode is off. Power off shuts the power off to the indoor unit. We don't want to do that. Mode off. Mode off or a temperature setting where it's not going to run.
Or unless you're, if you're pumping it down to take that thing off the wall and go.
Well, then you got to power
then
it
you got to power it down, obviously.
Well, once you
We
got
hope
it
that's
pumped down,
obvious
it
anyway.
really doesn't matter if you power off the indoor units. What I'm trying to avoid is that we start this unit with the service valves
Exactly.
closed. That's the
Exactly.
reason why I'm talking out loud and saying, okay,
Right.
be careful what you're doing.
Yeah.
We don't want to start this unit up with service valves
Don't get in a
closed.
hurry.
It's not going to hurt it. It's going to go out on some kind of air code.
Yeah.
But now you got an air code in it.
But still,
didn't
you don't
need-
want to have to deal with that
You didn't
anyway.
need to generate.
And the possibility of possibly,
All right, so I'm going to
doing
hit
something to the
SW4,
compressor.
and that should back us out. It did.
which it
Now
did.
we're going off.
And
our
it's off
controls
of the
went
control.
A2. Cool. I like it when I don't pre-do something before a training class and then I don't make a
And
fool
then
of myself.
And it goes a little bit.
It actually goes the way it's supposed to. That's kind of cool. All right. So there was a couple more over there that I said we
You
wanted
wanted
to
to
go
do
through real quick.
N5,
N5 was what?
indoor unit engineering SN offset.
So basically it's project number reset.
Right.
All right. So we'll do that. Well, you don't have a mode of off. I said that earlier. But we got a mode of fan.
You want this one in fan too?
Yep. So you can go fan. I even think if you power it off, it still would do a project number reset. All right. So which code was that?
N5.
N5. Okay. So let's find N5 real quick. So we're going to go to SW1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The reason why I did that is because I will tell guys all the time, it don't hurt for you to go longer than 5 seconds. So I will tell them to go 10, just to make sure we get in there, right? Then we can do SW1 or 2, cycle through. We're going to get to N5.
Right there.
There we go. We hit SW1, SW3, sorry, to confirm.
You might need to hit it twice.
I'm going to. Oh, nope, it went off. So it did it.
Okay.
And the only way you realize that is if you went and, because you can use the remote, and you can, or the controller. You can go into the controller and go to Project View, and it will tell you the address of the
indoor unit.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So when we went into those, when you went to menu and it said project, view, set, and all that. So view is where you would go to view diagnostics.
Okay.
View is also where you would read the project number.
The project number, gotcha.
So let's say it was goofy for some reason, and that's why you want to do a project number reset. So you can go out here, you can go view your addresses, so you know what the addresses were. Say maybe there was some goofy number. You had 2 indoor units. One's labeled,
4
one's
and
16, 8. One's 19, whatever. Yeah. You come out here, and you go to N5, and you do the project number reset. Then you go back in there and review them. It's going to be 1 and 2.
Gotcha.
Unless you're daisy chained with a bunch of other units. You know what I mean? Those addresses may already been taken if we got our G1 and G2s daisy chained to the other units.
Gotcha.
Okay? Again, we got to just think about what we're doing.
And then it could be 16 and 15
exactly.
and 16 because you've already got a different outdoor unit with indoors that are labeled 1 and 2.
The other thing you can do with the controllers, and I think there's so much that you can do with these, and that's the thing. You try to train on this. There's so much you can do, but there's also so many things that are not really necessary to do.
Right.
And you don't want to cover too much, right? Okay, so we can talk about it. I'm not going to always be able to show every little thing, right?
Yeah.
You can go into the controller and change the address.
Okay.
As long as it's not an address of something else already
That's
on
already
that system
taken.
that's already taken.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Okay, so it's another way to do it too.
But like you said, we don't necessarily need to do that for any reason. Can, but we don't need to.
Right.
So.
All right. So this one's not going to let me do C9 because I only got 1 fan.
Yeah.
Forced defrost. The whole idea here was to show you guys it is in the service. That's where this came from.
It's pretty straightforward.
It's pretty
and
straightforward.
It's simple to do.
It's not hard to do.
To get it into the different service modes or.
If you have the service tool, you can actually put it into A2 and vacuum mode and all that from the service tool. You can also do the debug process from the service tool. Pretty much everything you can do by the button presses out here, you can do from the service tool.
From the service tool, gotcha.
The advantage to the service tool a lot of times too, though, is that what if you've got all of your indoor units are remote? You have no view into the diagnostics. With the service tool, you have full view into the diagnostics. So if you're going to start selling a bunch of MultiPROs, I highly suggest you get one of those service tools because then you can show up to the job on any one of the units, whether you got all units with remotes or units with wired controllers. It doesn't matter. the view to the service information on the service tool is that much better than what the controller does, as you just seen with the control. The controller is great if that's all you got.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not discrediting that. What I'm saying is, you've seen when the project settings where it bumps you out, that won't.
Right.
So you can get in there and you're going through the diagnostic information. You're looking at the compressor hertz, the outdoor fan motor hertz, your pressures, your inlet and outlet temperatures, all the indoor coils, your EV step opening.
Yeah.
There's so much data you get in the palm of your hand, whether you want to stand outside in the rain plugged up to the machine, or you want to go to the indoor unit and plug it in.
Right.
Or you can use that cheap method if it's a wall mount like I talked about, and you only hook up a battery power source to that and just hook up the D1 and D2, manipulate the wiring to make that work.
And then you can read.
And then
the
you don't got to
system.
stand out in the rain, and
Right.
you're doing a full diagnostics
Right.
on the machine still.
Plus,
to
you
see
can
which-
control the whole system in the indoor unit.
You can
from
also
here,
control the whole unit from there.
turn it on, off, and
So I can't
yeah.
tell you, I don't know exactly, landed cost to a contractor, but the tool is worth
yeah.
what it
If you're
you pay
doing
for it.
multiple systems,
Right.
well worth it.
So the last thing in the day, and I apologize for that, there was a lot of information to cover, okay? Everything I covered as far as the basic installation and the stuff that you really need to repopulate your memory as you're installing one, go to our website, go under MultiPRO, go to the Quick Start Guide. I've got a lot of the information on there
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So that picture of the dog leg that I told you about, where all the service valves on Ultras are 3/4 suction or gas valve, but you got a 5/8 pipe.
Yeah.
That dog leg shows the picture of the dog leg. So I encourage you guys, I'm not going to get into it today anymore, but you can go out there, look at that Quick Start Guide. I got stuff in there about how you hook up the condensate pump on a wall mount, how you hook up the condensate pump on an air handler, how you hook up the float. That I didn't have in my training. It's just another jumper plug on that board. Super easy to do. That's in the Quick Start Guide. So all that pertinent information to make for you to be able to have a quick installation.
All of the installation absolutes are in
Yep.
that guide. Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent.
And it covers it. The document covers both standard and ultra.
Gotcha.
Okay. So it's a quick reference guide, a quick start guide. So you show up to the job, it's like, all right, I don't remember.
There's
what
your
I gotta do.
checklist.
That wiring diagram about the D1 and D2 wires and the
Yeah.
H1 and H2, that's in there.
Gotcha.
All that stuff, the little refreshers and stuff. Because I know the guys out in the field are working on this stuff. They're not only selling GRE, they're
Right.
doing a bunch of other different
Right.
products. So
It's hard to keep
just
up with
like
all
the
of the
Flex,
different,
Ultra,
all the differences. Yeah.
right, when we have that quick start guide,
Yeah.
that was the purpose behind the quick start guide behind MultiPRO, is to take all of this training stuff and
Condense it into here's what I need to
here's
know
what you really got to
while
know
I'm installing this right now.
to get the unit installed and get it up and running.
Yeah.
So let's quickly answer any more questions that might come in, and we'll call it a day. And I apologize. I appreciate everybody that stuck in here. I know we ran late, and I appreciate you hanging on.
We
And-
just love doing this so much.
well, and
Well, there's a lot of information
with
to
MultiPRO,
cover
there's
on
a lot.
MultiPRO. Like I told you yesterday when we were kind of planning out a little bit.
But,
There's no lack of information. Don't worry, we won't run.
So with
run short.
MultiPRO, there's a lot to know, but there's also a lot you don't necessarily have to know.
True.
I
Very
don't want
true.
people to be afraid of putting one
Yeah, yeah.
servicing it, whatever, because the installation is really not all that
Yeah,
complicated.
it's straightforward.
It is pretty
It's
straightforward.
not a big deal.
So
We only had one more comment. Will this training be recorded? Yes, most certainly. We'll have it posted on YouTube in the next X amount of hours. Next
I
week.
didn't know, are we doing a live? So the live trainings are so long, I don't know if we're posting those whole threads.
I'm not sure if we're posting the entire training,
I-
but on YouTube. But I think it's on our website.
Okay.
So, but either which way, it's available. It's recorded. We do take clips out of this and make shorter videos that
And
we
that's
do
when
post
we do
on
the Tech
YouTube.
90s, yep.
And we do Tech 90s, and we use some of the recordings that we make doing the live broadcast and shorten it, condense it, and
I think you're right. I think that's where we went with it. We just didn't just load it to YouTube. We made it more of a link on our website for the video for these, to where they could go back on our website, which it plays through YouTube somehow. Or
gotcha,
something,
gotcha.
I think.
It's very complicated. That's why.
You know what they say, right?
If you go back to the same link where you registered and logged in today, then you should be able to rewatch it.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, the whole training.
So I'm going to go back to Don't Shoot the Messenger.
Yeah.
This is what I do.
No,
This camera,
that's
and that camera,
somebody else.
and all the other stuff, that's not what I do.
Oh, jeez.
So, anyway,
Well,
appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope you got a lot out of it. Like I said, it's a lot to cram in a short period of time. I know it's a lot for you guys to absorb too, and that's why, in my opinion, for myself, I try to teach it so you understand it. Because I'm a firm believer in if you understand how something's supposed to work,
then you can figure out.
then it's a lot
the rest.
easier to not have to memorize it because
Right.
you know how it's supposed
You
to work.
understand it, so you can figure it out as you
Just
go.
like the discussion we were just having. Okay, let's think about this. What am I doing to the machine? How am I making this happen different? That kind of thing. So,
Oh, one last question. Arif says, "Is it true that pump down does not work in front of camera?"
no,
No,
it's not true. We just made it work.
We debunked that. It just doesn't work
just
the
didn't
first
work
time.
the first time.
The second time it works.
That was good. Well, we didn't actually close the service valve, but yeah, and I know. I'll be honest with you guys. I know it works because I did it on my machine at home.
We did it when we changed out.
Because I
put
took the B
Ultra
Revision
heat out.
Ultra off my house and put the new Ultra on my house.
Yeah.
Just so we could gain whatever information, any new
Operating.
knowledge about that
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I did it. I put it in refrigerant recycle mode, pumped all the refrigerant outdoor unit, closed the suction valve, killed the disconnect, disconnected that unit, and we brought the other unit back and put it in its place.
Yep.
So, and I pulled the vacuum from both sides, and we were rocking and rolling. So,
All right.
all right.
Well, we appreciate everybody joining us today, and
With Gree,
we're by
we're
your side.